Imagine yourself in a river, the water cold and swift. The current is powerful, relentlessly pulling you downstream, but you fight it with every fiber of your being. Your muscles burn, your lungs ache for air, and your mind is a storm of frantic thoughts. I must not be swept away. I must reach the other shore. I must not fail. The river, in this story, is not your enemy, but the sound of its rushing water feels like a threat, and every wave that crashes over you feels like a personal attack. You struggle, you kick, you grasp for anything solid, but find only the relentless, moving water. Exhaustion begins to set in, a deep, soul-wearying fatigue. Does this feeling seem familiar? Perhaps you feel it not in a river of water, but in the river of life. The current is the endless stream of notifications on your phone, the pressure to climb higher in your career, the constant news of global turmoil, the quiet but persistent anxiety about the future. We are told to hustle, to optimize, to control our destiny, to swim harder and faster than everyone else. And so we fight. We fight for control in a world that is fundamentally uncontrollable. We resist the natural flow of events, lamenting the past that cannot be changed, and fearing the future that has not yet arrived. This struggle, this constant internal battle, is the source of our deepest anxieties, the quiet thief of our sleep, leaving us feeling stranded and profoundly tired. But now, for a moment, let your gaze drift away from the struggling swimmer. Look closer at the surface of the water. See there, a single, ordinary leaf. It was once attached to a branch, but now it has been released. It rests on the very same current that causes so much struggle, yet it does not fight. It yields, it floats, it moves with the water, not against it. It spins gently in an eddy, it glides swiftly in the main channel. It asks for nothing and resists nothing. The leaf has no ambition to reach a specific shore, no fear of being carried into the unknown. It is simply present, a part of the river's journey. In its silent, effortless surrender, there is a profound elegance, a quiet wisdom. What if we could learn from this leaf? What if peace is not found in winning the battle against the river, but in realizing we were never meant to fight it at all? This is the radical invitation offered by ancient Buddhist wisdom. It is a path that teaches us not to build bigger dams of control, but to learn the gentle art of floating. It suggests that our true strength lies not in resistance, but in acceptance. Over the course of our journey together, we will explore this path. We will not ask you to believe in anything foreign, but to simply observe your own mind, your own life, through the lens of this timeless wisdom, and perhaps discover, like the leaf, the peace that comes from finally letting go and allowing the river to carry you home. That sensation of struggle we spoke of, the feeling of fighting a relentless current, is the starting point of our entire inquiry. It is not a rare or unusual state. For many of us, in the world we have built, it has become the default setting of our minds. We wake up, and the fight begins. The fight against the alarm clock, the fight against traffic, the fight against deadlines, the fight against our own perceived shortcomings, and the quiet, deep fight against the simple, unchangeable facts of our own lives. We have been taught, from our earliest days, that life is a challenge to be overcome, a summit to be conquered, a race to be won. We have internalized the belief that our value, our very happiness, depends on our ability to impose our will upon the world, to bend it into the shape of our desires. This heroic, yet deeply exhausting narrative is the very water we swim in, and we rarely stop to question it, but we must. For it is this unquestioned assumption, this war against the way things are, that is the ultimate source of our suffering. Let us return to the metaphor of the river. Life is, in its very essence, a river. It is not a static object, not a fixed landscape. It is pure, dynamic, and unceasing movement. Think of a real river. Can you step into the same river twice? The ancient philosopher Heraclitus said no, for it is not the same river, and you are not the same person. The water that touches your foot in one moment is already miles downstream in the next, replaced by new water, carrying new sediment at a new temperature. The river is a constant process of becoming. Our lives are exactly like this. The person you were 10 years ago exists only in memory, a collection of electrical and chemical traces in the brain. The person you will be in 10 years is a projection, a ghost of a possible future. The only thing that is ever real is the continuous, flowing present. Your body is changing with every breath. Your cells are dying and being replaced. Your thoughts arise, unbidden, and then fade away like clouds passing in the sky. Your emotions swell like a tide, and then recede. Joy, sadness, anger, peace. They are all just weather patterns on the surface of your consciousness. The circumstances of your life shift and rearrange themselves constantly. A job is gained, a relationship ends, a friend moves away, a new opportunity appears. This is the nature of existence. It is fluid, unpredictable, and impermanent. There is no solid ground. The river is all there is. And what is our typical human response to this beautiful, terrifying, fluid reality? We build dams. Out of a deep-seated fear of uncertainty, we try to halt the flow. We crave permanence in a world where nothing is permanent. We build a dam called my identity, a rigid story about who we are, what we like, and what we believe, and we defend it fiercely against anything that might challenge it. We build a dam called my relationship, trying to freeze it in the perfect moment of its beginning, resisting the natural evolution, the changes, the growth and decay that all living things undergo. We build a dam called my 5-year plan, a detailed blueprint for a future that does not yet exist, and we experience immense anxiety and frustration when the river of life inevitably carves a different path. We are conditioned to believe that control equals safety. We think that if we can just manage every variable, anticipate every outcome, and fortify our walls against the unexpected, then, finally, we will be happy. We will be secure. We will be at peace. But this is a profound illusion. The river does not respect our dams. Its nature is to flow, and when it meets a barrier, the pressure builds. The water churns. It becomes violent, turbulent. The dam may hold for a while, but the strain is immense. Eventually, it cracks, or the river simply finds a new way around it, leaving our carefully constructed fortress abandoned on dry land. This is where our exhaustion comes from. It does not come from the river itself. The flow of life is not inherently tiring. A tree is not tired by the changing of the seasons. A cloud is not exhausted by its journey across the sky. The exhaustion comes entirely from the effort of resistance. It is the energy we expend maintaining the dams. Think of the immense mental energy it takes to constantly worry about the future, running through endless negative scenarios in an attempt to prepare for them all. That is the energy of building a dam against the unknown. Think of the emotional energy it takes to nurse an old resentment, replaying a past hurt over and over in your mind. That is the energy of trying to swim back upstream to a place that no longer exists. Think of the physical tension you hold in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach, as you brace yourself against the stresses of the day. That is, your body building a physical dam. The events of life are not, in themselves, the cause of suffering. A job loss is an event. A medical diagnosis is an event. A disagreement is an event. It is our internal commentary, our fierce resistance, our core belief that this should not be happening, that transforms a neutral event into a source of deep personal pain. The suffering is not in the water, it is in the fight. We can see this pattern of upstream swimming in every corner of our daily lives. When we lie awake at night, ruminating on a mistake we made years ago, we are trying to swim upstream. We are fighting the irreversible flow of time, wasting our precious present moment energy on a battle that can never be won. The past is gone. It exists only as a thought in the now. To fight with it is to fight with a ghost. When we are consumed by anxiety about an upcoming presentation or a difficult conversation, we are trying to swim downstream faster than the current. We are trying to live in a future that has not arrived, attempting to control outcomes that are still unformed. We exhaust ourselves by fighting imaginary battles on a riverbank we may never even reach. When we refuse to accept a change in our lives, when we stubbornly cling to how things used to be, we are planting our feet in the riverbed, trying to become a rock. But we are not rocks. We are flesh and blood. The current will wear us down, erode our strength, and leave us feeling bitter and depleted. This resistance, this struggle against the isness of life, is the very definition of futility. There is a story, often told in different forms, about a man who was given a task to push a great round boulder up a steep hill. Every morning, He would set his shoulder to the cold stone and begin the arduous work. He would strain and sweat, his muscles screaming in protest, his feet slipping on the loose gravel. All day he would push, inch by agonizing inch. And every evening, just as he neared the summit, the boulder would slip from his grasp and roll all the way back to the bottom. The next morning, it would be waiting for him, and he would begin his struggle anew. In the common telling of this myth, this is a tale of punishment, of meaningless suffering. But let us look at it through a different lens. What if no one was forcing the man to push the boulder? What if, at some point long ago, he had decided that his entire purpose, his identity, was bound up in the task of getting that boulder to the top of that hill? The struggle became his meaning. His suffering became his badge of honor. He could not conceive of a life without this fight against the boulder's weight and the hill's incline. His prison was not the task, but his own attachment to it. The liberation is not found in the fantasy of one day reaching the summit. The liberation comes in the moment the man stops, takes a step back, and truly sees the boulder for what it is, a piece of stone. He sees the hill for what it is, a slope of earth. He realizes, with a clarity that is both shocking and liberating, that he has the freedom to simply walk away. He can sit down, feel the sun on his face, watch the clouds drift by, and let the boulder rest. His suffering ends not when he conquers the hill, but when he abandons the fight. We are all, in our own ways, pushing a boulder. We call it my career, my reputation, my perfect family, my righteous anger. We have become convinced that our happiness lies at the top of the hill. We have forgotten that we can stop. The recognition that we are engaged in a futile struggle against the nature of reality is the first, most crucial step toward peace. It is not a step of despair, but of profound hope. Because if our suffering is not caused by the river of life, but by our own mistaken attempt to fight it, then it means the solution is not outside of us. We don't need the river to change. We don't need the boulder to become lighter. We simply need to change our own approach. We need to learn a new way of being, a way that is not about fighting, but about flowing, a way that is not about pushing, but about letting go. We must now turn our attention away from the exhausted swimmer and the straining man, and look once more to the quiet wisdom of the leaf. What does it know that we have forgotten? Having seen the futility of the struggle, the immense and draining effort it takes to fight the current of life, we are left with a fundamental question. If fighting is not the answer, what is? The answer lies in the quiet wisdom of the leaf we observed, in its simple, unadorned acceptance of the river's flow. But as soon as we use a word like acceptance or surrender, our modern, conditioned minds may recoil. We have been taught that to surrender is to lose, to accept is to be weak, to let go is to give up. We picture a defeated army laying down its weapons, a passive victim of circumstance. But this is a profound misunderstanding of the wisdom we are exploring. The path of the leaf is not one of weakness, but of supreme intelligence. It is not about giving up, but about giving over to a power and a wisdom far greater than our own limited ego. It is the discovery of a strength that is not brittle and rigid, but fluid, adaptable, and ultimately unbreakable. Consider the energy dynamics. The swimmer, fighting the current, burns enormous amounts of personal energy. He is fueled by his own adrenaline, his own willpower, his own fear. He is a closed system, trying to overpower a force infinitely greater than himself, and the inevitable result is burnout. The leaf, on the other hand, expends no personal energy at all. It does not try to propel itself. Instead, it offers itself to the power of the river. It allows the current to be its engine. It harmonizes with the very force the swimmer is fighting, and in doing so, it journeys just as far, but with an effortless grace. This is the essence of what in Taoist philosophy is called Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-doing. It's the principle used by a master sailor who doesn't try to push her boat through the water, but instead angles her sails with immense skill to catch the invisible power of the wind. It's the principle of a master of Aikido who doesn't meet an opponent's attack with brute, opposing force, but instead blends with the attacker's momentum, redirecting it and using their own energy against them. This is not passivity. It is the highest form of skill, an intelligence that arises from deep observation and a letting go of the ego's need to be in control. To practice non-resistance is to become a master of the art of living, using the immense energies of life itself to carry you, rather than trying to fight them every step of the way. So how do we apply this principle when the river of our life becomes turbulent, when we are faced with a powerful emotion like grief, or fear, or anger? The swimmer's response, the path of resistance, is to try and dam the emotion. We tell ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way, I need to be strong, I have to get over this. We distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with anything to avoid the feeling. This is an attempt to fight the current. The result is that the emotion, denied its natural flow, gets stuck. It goes underground, festering in the dark, creating tension in the body and anxiety in the mind. The wisdom of the leaf offers a different way. It invites us to allow the emotion, to let go of the struggle with it. This doesn't mean indulging it or acting it out destructively. It simply means creating a space for it to exist. You feel the grief as a physical sensation in your chest. You watch the angry thoughts arise and pass without grabbing onto them. You allow the waves of fear to wash over you, trusting that you, the vast ocean of awareness, are larger than any single wave. In doing this, you are using the current. You are allowing the emotional energy to move through you, to complete its natural cycle. And paradoxically, it is by fully accepting the emotion, by ceasing to fight it, that it loses its power over you and begins to dissolve. It is crucial here to distinguish between this active, intelligent acceptance and its passive cousin, resignation. Resignation is a state of defeated helplessness. It is looking at a difficult situation and saying, "This is awful, and there's nothing I can do. I give up." It is a collapse of spirit. It is apathy born of despair. Acceptance is something entirely different. Acceptance is a state of clear-eyed power. It is looking at the very same situation and saying, "This is the reality I am facing right now. I will not waste my energy wishing it were different. I will not deny it or fight with the fact of its existence." Acknowledging this reality fully, what is the most skillful, compassionate, and intelligent action I can take from here? Resignation is seeing your house on fire and sitting on the curb to watch it burn. Acceptance is seeing the house on fire, feeling the fear, and immediately, clearly, asking, "Where is the water? Where is the phone?" You cannot effectively fight a fire if you are still arguing with the fact that it has started. Acceptance of what is the non-negotiable first step for any wise action. It clears the fog of denial and emotional turmoil, allowing you to see your tools and your options with perfect clarity. There is a classic Zen parable that illustrates this principle perfectly. In a field stood a mighty oak tree and, beside it, a slender stalk of bamboo. The oak was proud of its strength. It would boast to the bamboo, "Look at my massive trunk, my thick branches. I am a symbol of power. I resist the wind and the rain. You are so thin and weak. You bend and sway at the slightest breeze." The bamboo would simply smile and remain silent. One year, a great typhoon came. The wind howled with unimaginable fury. The oak tree stood rigid, resisting the gale with all its might. It strained and groaned, its roots clinging to the earth, its branches fighting the punishing wind. The bamboo, however, did what it always did. It bent, it yielded. It bowed so low that its top touched the very ground, offering no resistance to the storm's passage. The wind passed over it. When the storm finally abated and the sun returned, the mighty oak tree was broken. Its massive trunk was split in two, its branches shattered and scattered across the field. But the slender bamboo simply straightened itself up, glistening in the sun, completely unharmed. The story asks us, which of these was truly strong? True strength is not found in rigidity and resistance. It is found in flexibility, adaptability, and the wisdom to yield to forces greater than oneself. We spend so much of our lives trying to be the oak, when our peace and survival depend on learning to be the bamboo. When we begin to embody this wisdom, to practice being the leaf, the bamboo, the sailor, the Aikido master in our own lives, the benefits are immediate and profound. The first thing we notice is a dramatic reduction in stress. The internal war is over. The constant tension of bracing for the next blow begins to soften. The mind, no longer consumed with fighting reality, becomes quieter. You find you have more energy because you are no longer wasting it on futile struggles. The second benefit is a surprising increase in resilience. When you stop resisting life's challenges, you bounce back from them much more quickly. You don't get stuck in the initial phases of denial and anger. You accept the new landscape and begin to navigate it. You become more creative and resourceful because your mental bandwidth is no longer clogged with the static of resistance. And finally, a deeper kind of peace begins to emerge. It is not the fragile peace that depends on everything going your way. It is a robust, unshakable peace that comes from trusting your ability to flow with the river, no matter where it leads. It is the peace of knowing that you can bend in the storm. It is the peace of the leaf, resting on the water, at home in the heart of the current. To truly embrace this way of being, however, we must deepen our understanding. It is one thing to accept the wisdom of flowing with the river. It is another to understand the river's fundamental nature, a nature that makes flowing with it not just a good idea, but the only sane option. We must now look more closely at the water itself, at the very substance of our experience, and confront its most essential and perhaps most unsettling characteristic. We must learn to see that the river is in a constant, unceasing state of change. Having embraced the wisdom of non-resistance, of flowing with life rather than fighting it, our journey now takes us deeper into the very nature of the river itself. To flow gracefully, we must understand the medium in which we are flowing, and the single most fundamental, inescapable characteristic of the river of life, the truth that underpins all Buddhist thought, can be captured in a single, elegant Pali word, anicca. Anicca is most often translated as impermanence, but it means more than that. It means that everything, without exception, is in a state of flux. Everything is a process, not a fixed thing. Nothing is permanent, nothing is stable, and nothing lasts. This is not presented as a sad or pessimistic philosophy. It is presented as the most basic, observable law of the universe, like gravity. To understand anicca is not to become cynical, it is to become realistic. And in that realism, a profound and unshakable peace can be found. Let us examine this law, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived reality. Look at the world on the grandest scale. Mountains, those ancient symbols of permanence, are slowly but surely being worn down by wind and rain, their dust washing into the sea. Stars, which seem like eternal diamonds on black velvet, are in fact colossal thermonuclear furnaces, burning through their fuel over billions of years, destined to either collapse or explode. Empires that once seemed invincible now exist only as ruins and stories in history books. This is anicca on a scale that is hard to comprehend. But let us bring it closer to home. Think of the town or city where you live. Is it the same as it was 20 years ago? Or even 5? Buildings rise and fall, shops open and close, roads are rerouted, neighborhoods change their character. Now bring it closer still, into your own life. Your relationships are in constant flow. The passionate intensity of a new romance naturally matures and evolves into a different kind of connection, or it may fade away entirely. Friendships shift as life circumstances change. Our own family members grow older, their personalities and needs evolving day by day. Even our possessions, the things we think we own, are subject to anicca. The new car gets its first scratch, the favorite sweater begins to fray, the computer becomes obsolete. Everything we try to hold on to is like a bar of soap in a wet hand. It is slippery, and its nature is to change. Now, we must take the final step and bring the inquiry inward, into the territory of our own being. Look at your body. Is it the same body that was born? Is it the same body you had a decade ago? It is a flowing river of processes. Millions of your cells have died and been replaced just in the time you have been listening to this. Your hair grows, your nails lengthen, your skin wrinkles, your physical strength ebbs and flows. It is never, for a single moment, a fixed, static object. It is a process of aging, a process of change. What about your feelings? Can you name a single emotion that has ever lasted forever? Joy arrives, a welcome guest, but it does not stay indefinitely. Sadness comes, an unwelcome visitor, but it too eventually packs its bags and leaves. Anger can flare up like a raging fire, but no fire burns forever. It consumes its fuel and turns to embers. Even a state of deep peace is not a permanent acquisition. It is a form of weather, beautiful and serene, but the clouds will eventually gather again. Your emotional life is a kaleidoscope of shifting colors and patterns, and not one of them is permanent. And most intimately, what about your thoughts? Try for just a moment to stop your thoughts. You will find it is impossible. They arise from an unknown source, capture your attention for a moment, and then vanish, immediately replaced by the next one. The mind produces thoughts as a cloud produces rain. It is its nature. Your opinions, your beliefs, your plans, your memories, your judgments, they are all fleeting mental events. The story of you, the personality you hold so dear, is nothing more than a narrative woven from these transient thoughts, a story you tell yourself moment by moment. When we investigate our experience with honesty, from the vastness of the cosmos to the inner world of a single thought, we are forced to an astonishing conclusion. There is absolutely nothing we can grasp, nothing we can point to, that is not stamped with the indelible mark of Anika. Everything arises, it stays for a little while, and it passes away. This is the law. So where does our suffering come from? If change is the natural law, why does it so often hurt us? The suffering does not come from the fact of change itself. It comes from our resistance to this fact. It comes from our desperate attempt to build permanent homes on the shifting sands of impermanence. We experience a moment of intense happiness, perhaps on a beautiful vacation or with a loved one. The moment is perfect, and in that perfection, a subtle desire is born. The desire for it to last forever. We try to grasp it, to freeze, frame it in our minds. We are trying to hold a handful of river water. The tighter we squeeze, the faster it runs through our fingers. The suffering is not that the moment passed. The suffering is in the squeezing. We fall in love and cling to the initial, ecstatic phase of the relationship, demanding that our partner and our feelings remain unchanged. When they inevitably evolve, as all living things must, we feel betrayed and heartbroken. Our pain comes from demanding permanence from that which is, by its very nature, impermanent. We build a strong identity for ourselves. I am a successful person, I am a healthy person, I am a good person. And when we encounter failure or illness or make a mistake, we suffer intensely. Why? Because the river of life has just washed away the permanent statue of me that we had erected on its banks. The pain is in the clinging to the statue. There is a timeless story about a great king who possessed all the riches and power one could imagine. Yet his heart was often troubled by the pendulum swing of life. He summoned the wisest sages in his kingdom with a special request. "Craft for me a beautiful ring," he commanded, "and inscribe upon it a message that is short but profound. It must have the power to console me in my darkest hours of despair, and also the power to ground me in my moments of greatest triumph and elation." The sages conferred for a long time, and finally, they returned to the king and presented him with a simple, elegant gold band. The king looked closely, and etched into the surface were 4 simple words: "This too shall pass." The wisdom was immediate and shattering. When overcome with grief or failure, he would look at the ring and find comfort in the knowledge that his pain was not a permanent state. And when puffed up with pride after a great victory, he would look at the ring and be reminded of humility, for his glory was also just a temporary visitor. The message was a constant reminder of Anika, an anchor of wisdom in the turbulent river of his life. This understanding, this constant remembrance that this too shall pass, is not a recipe for morbid gloom. On the contrary, it is the secret to both resilience and joy. It is the source of all hope. Because things change, wounds can heal. Because things change, a broken heart can mend itself. Because things change, you are not defined by your past mistakes. You have the capacity to learn, grow, and become a different person. Because things change, even the most difficult and oppressive situations, personal or political, will not last forever. Winter does not last forever. Spring is always a possibility. This is the great promise of Anika. Furthermore, it imbues the present moment with an incredible, poignant preciousness. If you knew that this sunset was the only one you would ever see, how closely would you watch it? If you knew this conversation with a loved one was fleeting and unrepeatable, how deeply would you listen? Impermanence is what makes life sacred. It calls us to be fully present, to taste the sweetness of the strawberry, because the strawberry will soon be gone. You do not need to take any of this on faith. You can experience the truth of Anika directly, Right now, just bring your awareness to the process of your own breathing. Notice the sensation of the air entering your nostrils. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Then there is a brief pause, a moment of stillness, before the out-breath begins its own journey of arising and passing away. Your breath is a perfect, miniature lesson in impermanence, available to you at all times. Or simply listen. Listen to the sounds in your environment. Each sound arises from silence, endures for a moment, and dissolves back into silence. The world is constantly singing the song of Anika. By practicing this simple, direct observation, impermanence ceases to be a frightening concept and becomes a familiar, intimate reality. We see now that the river of life is in constant motion, governed by the universal law of change. We see that our suffering arises not from the change itself, but from our deep-seated instinct to resist it. But this leads to an even more fundamental question. If everything is changing, what is it that we are trying to hold on to? Why do we cling so fiercely to the riverbank? What is the nature of this grasping, this powerful force of attachment that causes us so much pain? To find peace, we must now turn our full attention to this very mechanism of clinging. We have journeyed to a point of profound insight. We can see that our world, both inner and outer, is a ceaseless river of change, a reality the Buddha called Anika. We have also seen that our suffering is not caused by the river itself, but by our desperate struggle against its current, our attempt to build dams of permanence where none can exist. Now, we must examine the very nature of this struggle. We must look at the hands that are grabbing so tightly to the riverbank, refusing to let go. What is this force? In the language of the Buddha, this clinging, this grasping, this feverish holding on, is called upadana. It is the fuel that feeds the fire of our discontent. To understand upadana is to understand the precise mechanism of our own self-inflicted suffering. The first and most important step in this understanding is to make a clear distinction. When we speak of letting go of attachment, we are not speaking of letting go of love. This is a critical point. Our culture often conflates love and attachment, but they are, in fact, opposing forces. Love is an open hand. It is expansive. It is the genuine wish for another being, or even for an experience, to be happy and free. True love appreciates, it does not possess. It is like warming your hands by a beautiful fire. You can enjoy its warmth, its light, its dancing flames, without feeling the need to capture the fire and put it in a box. You know that to do so would be to extinguish the very thing you admire. Attachment, or upadana, is a clenched fist. It is contractive and based in fear. It says, I need you to make me happy. I need you to stay the same. I need you to not leave me. Attachment tries to own the fire. It is the desperate attempt to hoard the warmth, and in doing so, it gets burned. You can love your partner with all your heart, which means you celebrate their growth and happiness, even if it leads them on a path different from your own. Or you can be attached to your partner, which means you live in quiet fear of them changing, and you subtly try to control them to ensure your own needs are met. You can appreciate the beauty of your youth and physical vitality, or you can be attached to it, living in terror of the natural process of aging. Love frees, attachment imprisons. So why do we do it? Why do we clench our fists when an open hand would bring so much more peace? Upadana is not a sign of moral failure. It is a deeply programmed, primal response rooted in two fundamental illusions, the illusion of fear and the illusion of emptiness. We cling, first and foremost, because we are afraid of loss. We mistakenly believe that our happiness is located within the person, the object, or the status we are clinging to. We think the job title contains our self-worth, the relationship contains our joy, the money contains our security, and so, the prospect of losing these things feels like a mortal threat, like we are about to lose a part of ourselves. We are clinging to an external object to soothe an internal fear. This leads to the second root of attachment, a pervasive, often unconscious feeling of inner lack or emptiness. In Buddhist iconography, there is a figure called a hungry ghost. These beings are depicted with huge, cavernous stomachs, but tiny, pinhole mouths. They can never eat enough to be full. They are in a state of constant, gnawing hunger and dissatisfaction. For many of us, our sense of self is like a hungry ghost. It feels incomplete, lacking, not quite whole. We live with a subtle but persistent feeling that something is missing. And so we begin a frantic, lifelong project to fill this inner void with things from the outside. We think, if I can just get that promotion, then I will feel whole. If I can just find the perfect partner, then I will feel complete. If I can just get enough money, enough praise, enough experiences, then this feeling of lack will finally go away. Upadana is this hungry ghost's frantic, grasping for anything and everything to pour into its bottomless stomach. But because the things of the world are all impermanent, anicca, nothing ever fills the void for long. The new car gets old, the thrill of the promotion fades, the relationship faces challenges, and the hunger returns, often stronger than before. The clinging itself perpetuates the very feeling of lack it is trying to solve. Buddhist teachings identify 4 primary categories of what we cling to, 4 favorite foods of the hungry ghost. The first is the most obvious, clinging to sense pleasures. This is the attachment to agreeable sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. The pleasure itself is not the problem. The problem is the upadana, the clinging. It's the difference between enjoying a delicious meal and being obsessed with the next one, unable to be happy without it. It's the endless scrolling through social media, chasing the next little dopamine hit of a new image or a new piece of information. This form of clinging is the engine of our modern consumer culture, which constantly tells us that our happiness is just one more purchase away. The second type is clinging to views and opinions. This is our attachment to our ideas, our beliefs, our ideologies, our narratives about the world and ourselves. We identify so strongly with our political views, our religious beliefs, or even our opinions about a film, that when they are challenged, we feel personally attacked. We are not just defending an idea, we are defending our very sense of me. This clinging is the source of endless arguments, of rigid dogmatism, and of the deep and painful divisions we see in our world. We would rather be right than be at peace. The third is clinging to rites, rituals, and routines. On the surface, this refers to the mistaken belief that performing a specific external action will automatically lead to inner peace or salvation, but we can broaden it to include our rigid attachment to how things should be done. It could be a strict diet, a specific workout regimen, or an unchangeable daily schedule. The routine itself may be healthy, but the clinging is not. When we become attached to the external form, we lose the inner spirit. If we feel immense anxiety because we missed a workout or had to eat an unhealthy food, our wellness routine has become a source of upadana, another cage. The fourth and most subtle type is clinging to a doctrine of a self. This is the deepest attachment of all, the root from which the others grow. It is the fundamental, often unexamined assumption that there is a permanent, separate, solid me at the center of our universe. This me is the one who needs protecting, the one who needs to be right, the one who needs to feel good. All other forms of clinging are in service to this primary project of protecting and promoting this illusory self. We will explore this more deeply later, for to see through this illusion is to strike at the very root of suffering. There is a simple and powerful story that illustrates the self-imprisoning nature of upadana. In a forest, hunters who wanted to catch monkeys would devise a simple but ingenious trap. They would take a coconut, empty it, and drill a hole in it just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. They would then place some delicious nuts inside the coconut and tie it to a tree. Sooner or later, a monkey would come along, smell the nuts, and slide its hand into the coconut to grab the prize. But here is the trap. With its hand now clenched in a fist around the nuts, the monkey cannot pull its hand out. The hole is too small for a closed fist. The hunters would then approach. The monkey would see them coming and panic, pulling and shrieking, desperately trying to free itself, but it cannot. It is trapped. Freedom is only a single action away. All the monkey has to do is let go of the nuts. If it would just open its hand, it could slide it out effortlessly and escape up a tree. But its desire, its attachment, its upadana to the nuts is so powerful, so all-consuming, that it cannot bring itself to let go. And so, it is captured, a prisoner of its own clenched fist. We are that monkey. The nuts are all the things we cling to. Our possessions, our status, our opinions, our youth, our very idea of who we are. The coconut is the situation, the circumstance of our suffering. We feel trapped, we pull and we struggle, blaming the trap, blaming the hunters, blaming the world. But the source of our imprisonment is our own grasping. Freedom is always available. It is as simple and as profoundly difficult as opening the hand. The practice, then, is learning to notice the clenching. It is to bring a gentle, non-judgmental awareness to the feeling of attachment as it arises. When you are in a conversation, can you feel the clenching of your mind when your opinion is challenged? When you look in the mirror, can you feel the clenching of fear around the process of aging? When you achieve something, can you feel the clenching of desire to hold on to that success forever? By simply seeing this mechanism, there is the fist clenching again. We begin to loosen its grip. We learn that we can appreciate the clouds without needing to catch them, that we can warm our hands at the fire without needing to own it. We now see that upadana, this grasping fist, is what holds us in a state of struggle against the flowing river of anicca. But what powers the fist? What are the deep, primal energies in the mind that compel us to cling so tightly? To truly liberate ourselves, we must venture even deeper into the source code of our minds and confront the three fundamental forces that are said to be the root of all suffering. These are known as the three poisons. We have journeyed inward, tracing the anatomy of our own discontent. We started with the struggle against the river of life. We saw this struggle is futile because the river's nature is anicca, constant change. We then identified the mechanism of our struggle as upadana, the clenched fist of attachment. Now, we must ask the final and most fundamental question of diagnosis. What is the ultimate source of this grasping? What is the fuel for the fire of attachment? If our mind is a river, what is the origin point of the pollution that makes its waters so murky and turbulent? The wisdom of the Buddha points to three fundamental toxins, three primal energies that lie at the very root of every form of suffering. They are known as the three poisons. To understand these poisons is to understand the operating system of the unenlightened mind. They are called lobha, dosa, and moha. The first poison is lobha. This is typically translated as greed, but its meaning is much broader. Lobha is the energy of pulling toward. It is the constant, nagging voice of desire, the inner whisper of I want, I need, give me. It is the engine of craving. It is the essential experience of the hungry ghost, that feeling of inner lack that seeks to be filled from the outside. Lobha is not just the desire for wealth or possessions. It is the desire for pleasant sensations, the craving for praise and approval, the thirst for fame and attention, the longing for an emotional high. It is the fundamental belief that our happiness is contingent upon getting something we currently do not have. The tragic nature of lobha is that it is insatiable. When we get what we want, the satisfaction is fleeting. The pleasure fades, anicca, and the underlying feeling of lack returns, often demanding a bigger, better, or newer object of desire. Getting the thing we crave does not cure the craving, it reinforces it. This is the poison of endless consumption, the driving force behind our modern world's obsession with more. It is the endless scroll on a social media feed, the constant checking for new messages, the underlying anxiety that we are missing out on some better experience happening elsewhere. It is the relentless pulling of the mind toward an ever-receding horizon of satisfaction. The second poison is dosa. If lobha is the energy of pulling toward, dosa is its polar opposite, the energy of pushing away. It is translated as aversion, hatred, or anger. Dosa is the violent, often instantaneous rejection of any experience we find unpleasant. It is the fire of irritation that flares up when we are cut off in traffic. It is the cold stone of resentment we carry for someone who has wronged us. It is the judgment and criticism we level against ourselves and others. It is the annoyance at a slow internet connection, the frustration with a crying child, the fear and hatred of those who hold different political or social views. Lobha and dosa are two heads of the same beast. We spend our lives frantically trying to pull pleasant experiences toward us and violently trying to push unpleasant experiences away. This constant push and pull, this war with reality, is a primary source of our mental exhaustion. Dosa is particularly potent in our digital age. It is the lifeblood of online outrage culture, the quick, addictive rush of indignation, the formation of tribes based on shared hatreds. We bond over what we push away. But this poison, like all poisons, harms the one who carries it most. Aversion does not harm the object of our hatred. It burns and corrodes our own heart, filling our own river with bitterness and acid. These two poisons, the pulling of lobha and the pushing of dosa, are easy to see. They are the dramatic actors on the stage of our mind, but they could not operate without the third, most fundamental and most insidious poison. The third poison is moha. This is translated as delusion or ignorance. Moha is not a lack of intelligence or information. A person can have a PhD and still be deeply afflicted by moha. Moha is a spiritual blindness. It is a fundamental misperception of the nature of reality. It is the dark, foggy, confused state of mind that doesn't see things as they truly are. It is the murky water itself, the background condition that allows the weeds of greed and the thorns of aversion to grow. What, specifically, are we deluded about? We are deluded about the very truths we have been exploring. Moha is the mind that ignores anicca, believing that impermanent things can be made permanent. It is the mind that ignores the reality of suffering, constantly chasing after fleeting pleasures in the mistaken belief that they will provide lasting happiness. And most profoundly, it is the mind that clings to the idea of a solid, separate, unchanging self, a topic we will delve into more deeply. Moha is the fog that prevents the monkey from seeing that the coconut trap is an illusion of its own making. It is the unquestioned belief that the nuts in its fist are the source of happiness, and that freedom is impossible. Because we are operating from this base of delusion, we naturally engage in the futile activities of lobha and dosa. Because we are deluded into thinking a new car will make us permanently happy, we generate lobha, the craving for it. When the car gets scratched, our delusion about its permanence and importance fuels dosa, the anger we feel. This entire painful drama reinforces our delusion, and the vicious cycle continues, a feedback loop of suffering. Moha is the root poison. It is the darkness that allows the other two to flourish. The Buddha once gave a powerful sermon using the metaphor of a house on fire. Imagine, he said, a large and beautiful house. A house you love, filled with all your precious belongings, your comfortable furniture, your cherished memories. But one day, the house catches on fire. A spark lands on a curtain, and flames begin to lick up the walls. The fire of lobha, of insatiable desire, begins to consume everything. The heat of dosa, of anger and fear, becomes unbearable. The thick, black, choking smoke of moha, of confusion and delusion, fills every room, making it impossible to see or to think clearly. Now, if you are inside this house, what is the one and only intelligent thing to do? The only sane response is to get out, to escape the burning building as quickly as possible. But the person clouded by the poisons does not do this. The person in the grip of moha doesn't even realize the danger is so great. They are confused by the smoke, unsure of where the exits are. The person in the grip of lobha runs around frantically, trying to save their favorite possessions, a beautiful table here, a valuable painting there while the roof is about to collapse on their head. They are so attached to the contents of the house that they are willing to die for them. The person in the grip of dosa might be angry at the fire, trying to beat it back with a small rug, a futile and hopeless gesture against the raging inferno. The Buddha's core message is like the voice of a clear-headed firefighter shouting from outside. The whole house is on fire. Stop worrying about the furniture. Forget your attachments and your arguments. Find the door and get out, now. This burning house is samsara, the endless cycle of suffering. It is the state of our ordinary mind, constantly being consumed by the flames of greed, aversion, and delusion. The spiritual path is not about rearranging the furniture in this burning house. It is not about making our prison more comfortable. It is about escape. It is about finding the door to a place of safety, clarity, and peace, a place where the fires cannot reach. By identifying these three poisons, we have completed our diagnosis. We have traced our suffering from the general struggle to the law of impermanence, to the mechanism of attachment, and finally, to these root causes. We now understand the nature of our dis-ease. But a diagnosis, no matter how accurate, is not a cure. To simply know that our house is on fire is not enough. We need an escape plan. We need a clear, reliable, and systematic path that leads out of the smoke and into the fresh, clear air. We need a practical set of instructions from the one who has already found the way out. This brings us to the very heart of the Buddha's first and most essential teaching, the foundational framework for all that follows. We are now ready to receive the prescription, the Four Noble Truths. We stand before the smoldering ruins of the burning house, our mind. We have seen the flames of greed, lobha, the scorching heat of aversion, dosa, and we have choked on the blinding smoke of delusion, moha. We have diagnosed the poisons that contaminate our experience. To simply be aware of this terrifying predicament is a crucial first step, but it is not enough. It could lead to despair. What we need now is not just a diagnosis, but a clear and effective plan of action, an escape route. It is at this critical juncture that we encounter the very first teaching the Buddha gave after his own enlightenment. This teaching is the bedrock of his entire system, a framework so elegant, so logical, and so practical that it has been compared to the protocol of a master physician. The Buddha is often called the great physician, the healer of the world's suffering, and this teaching, the Four Noble Truths, is his clinical method for treating the fundamental dis-ease of the human heart. This is not a set of commandments to be believed on faith. It is a pragmatic, four-step process of observation and action. First, the physician identifies the symptom and diagnoses the illness. Second, he determines the cause of the illness. Third, he ascertains whether a cure is possible and describes the state of health that will result. And fourth, he writes a detailed prescription, a course of treatment to be followed to achieve that cure. Let us walk through this life-altering diagnosis together with the same openness and courage we would bring to a trusted doctor's office. The first noble truth is the diagnosis of our condition. It is the truth of suffering, or in the original Pali, the truth of dukkha. The word suffering is a common translation, but it is incomplete. Dukkha is a much subtler concept. It encompasses not just the obvious pain of sickness, old age, and death, but also a pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness, of underlying friction, of life being somehow out of joint. It is the low-grade, chronic stress that hums beneath the surface of even our pleasant moments. The Buddha identified three distinct types of dukkha. The first is the pain of pain, the obvious suffering of a headache, a broken heart, the grief of losing a loved one. This is the dukkha we all know and seek to avoid. The second is the dukkha of change. This is the suffering that arises from the law of anicca, impermanence. Even our happiest moments are tinged with dukkha because a part of us knows they will not last. The beautiful vacation must end. The joyful gathering will disperse. Youth will fade. The very pleasure contains the seed of its own passing, and therefore a subtle pain. The third and most profound type is the dukkha of conditioned existence. This is the background unsatisfactoriness of being a self caught in the relentless cycle of craving and attachment, constantly pushed and pulled by circumstances. It is the fatigue of having to maintain our ego, the anxiety of our constant vulnerability. This first truth is not a pessimistic declaration that life is miserable. It is a courageous, realistic, and compassionate statement of fact. It is the doctor gently but firmly saying, "There is an illness present. Let us not deny it. Let us look at it clearly, without fear." The second noble truth is the determination of the cause. It is the truth of the origin of suffering, or samudaya. Here, the great physician tells us that our suffering is not random. It is not a punishment. It is not an accident. It has a specific, identifiable cause. That cause is tanha, a word that translates as thirst, craving, or desire. This is the engine that drives us. It is the activity of the three poisons we have already explored. It is the craving for pleasant sensations, the craving for status and success, the craving for life to be other than it is. It is the thirst to become something we are not, and the thirst to get rid of what we don't want. This truth is incredibly empowering. If our dukkha were caused by external forces beyond our control, we would be helpless victims. But since it is caused by an internal mechanism, own craving it means the power to change our situation lies within our own minds. The illness is not coming from the outside world. It originates within us. The cause has been found. The third noble truth is the prognosis. It is the truth of the cessation of suffering, or nirodha. This is the truth of hope. It states, with profound certainty, that because suffering has a cause, if that cause is removed, the suffering will cease. If the thirst of tanha is quenched, the fever of dukkha will break. The fires of greed, aversion, and delusion can be extinguished. The physician looks at us and says, "This condition is not terminal. It is completely curable." This state of cessation, of freedom, is known as nirvana, or nibbana. It is crucial to understand that nirvana is not a heavenly place you go to after you die. It is a psychological state that can be realized right here, in this very life. It is the complete extinguishing of the flames of the three poisons. It is what remains when the grasping fist of upadana finally opens. It is a state of supreme peace, unshakable liberation, and profound clarity, free from the turbulent push and pull of craving. A cure is possible. There is a famous story that beautifully illustrates these first truths. A young woman named Kisa Gotami was driven mad with grief when her only child died. Clutching the small, lifeless body, she went from house to house, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back. Some mocked her, others pitied her, until one wise man, seeing her anguish, directed her to the Buddha. The Buddha looked upon her with immense compassion. He did not lecture her. He simply said, "There is only one medicine that can help you. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed from a house where no one note, a parent, a child, a spouse, or a savanthus ever died." Kisa Gotami's heart soared with hope. A mustard seed was such a simple thing to find. She went to the first house and asked. The woman there replied, "You may have a mustard seed, but my dear, the living are few, but the dead are many. My husband died last year." She went to the next house, and the next. The story was always the same. We have plenty of seeds, but in this house, we have lost a mother. In this house, we have lost a son. As the day wore on, and she went from door to door, a profound realization began to dawn in her heart. Her immense, personal grief began to dissolve into a universal understanding. She was not alone in her pain. Loss and death were not a unique curse that had befallen her. They were the shared, inescapable condition of all life. Her personal sorrow had opened the door to the universal truth of dukkha. She gently laid her child to rest in the forest and returned to the Buddha, her mind transformed. She was no longer seeking a medicine for her child's body, but a cure for the suffering of her own mind. She had seen the illness, dukkha. She understood its cause, her attachment to something that is by nature impermanent, samudaya. And she now had faith that there was a state of cessation, nirodha, and that this wise teacher could show her the way. And so we arrive at the fourth noble truth, the prescription. It is the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering, or magga. The Buddha did not just describe the problem and its cause. He laid out a complete, practical, and detailed course of treatment. This path is called the Noble Eightfold Path. It is the medicine that cures the disease. It is a set of 8 interconnected practices that encompass every aspect of one's life: our understanding, our intentions, our speech, our actions, our livelihood, our effort, our mindfulness, and our concentration. It is not a set of beliefs, but a path of active training. It is a way of living that systematically dismantles the causes of suffering and cultivates the causes of peace. It is the detailed map that leads out of the burning house. In these 4 noble truths, we have a complete framework for our liberation. We have faced the honest truth of our universal condition of dukkha. We have understood that its cause lies not in the world, but in our own craving mind. We have been given the hopeful promise that a cure, nirvana, is possible, and we have been handed the prescription, the Noble Eightfold Path. The journey out of the fire is no longer a mystery. A clear path has been illuminated. Now, all that remains is for us to take the first step. And on this path, the journey of 1,000 miles begins not just with a single step, but with a single, clear-sighted moment of awareness. We must first learn how to be present, how to observe our own minds without judgment. We must begin with the foundational practice that supports all others, the practice of mindfulness. We have been given the map, the 4 noble truths, which shows us our location, our destination, and the route between them. This route is the Noble Eightfold Path, a complete guide to a life of wisdom, integrity, and peace. Like any great journey, it begins with a single, foundational step. On this path, that first crucial step, the very ground upon which the entire structure is built, is the practice of right mindfulness. In Pali, this is samasati. But what is mindfulness? The word is used so frequently today that its profound meaning can be easily lost. It is not some vague, mystical state. It is a precise mental skill, an art of being that is both radically simple and deeply transformative. It is the art of arriving fully in your own life. To understand what mindfulness is, it is helpful to first look at its opposite, the state of mindlessness, which is the default condition for most of us. Our mind, when left to its own devices, is like a wild monkey, restlessly swinging from branch to branch, never still for more than a moment. It leaps from a memory of the past, to a worry about the future, to a judgment about the present, to a fantasy, to a sensation, back to a worry. Or perhaps it is like a small boat adrift on a vast ocean, without a rudder or an anchor, tossed about by every wave of thought and every gust of emotion. We are physically present in one place, but our mind is almost always somewhere else. We are driving a car, but we are mentally replaying an argument from yesterday. We are in a meeting at work, but we are anxiously planning our weekend. We are speaking with our children, but we are scrolling through our phone. We live our lives in a state of near constant distraction, a kind of waking dream. The tragedy of this state is that while our mind is lost in the unreality of the past and future, our actual life is unfolding, unnoticed and unlived, in the only time that ever truly exists, the present moment. Mindfulness is the antidote to this condition. The most classic and useful definition describes it as paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack that carefully. First, paying attention. This is a conscious and deliberate act. We are choosing to direct our awareness, rather than letting it be pulled around by random stimuli. Second, on purpose. We are engaging in this practice with a clear intention, the intention to be present, to wake up from the dream of our discursive thoughts. Third, in the present moment. This is the heart of the practice. We are bringing our full attention to the raw data of our immediate experience. The sensations in our body, the sounds we are hearing, the process of our breathing, right here, right now. And finally, the most crucial and often most difficult part, non-judgmentally. This means we observe our experience without filtering it through our habitual labels of good or bad, right or wrong, like or dislike. We step back from our role as the judge and jury of our own lives, and instead adopt the attitude of a neutral, curious scientist. We simply observe what is present. If there is pain, we note there is pain, without adding the second layer of, I hate this pain and I want it to go away. If a thought of anxiety arises, we note there is anxiety, without judging ourselves for being anxious. This non-judgmental quality is what brings warmth and kindness to the practice. It is what transforms it from a rigid discipline into an act of profound self-compassion. This practice of anchoring ourselves in the present is so vital because the unmindful mind is a perpetual time traveler, and its two favorite destinations are the source of so much of our dukkha. It travels to the past, a vast museum filled with dusty trophies and painful exhibits. There, it wanders through the halls of regret, endlessly replaying conversations and decisions, torturing itself with what-ifs and if-onlys. Or it gets lost in the wing of resentment, nursing old grudges, keeping past hurts alive by re-experiencing them over and over. This constant journeying into the past, a realm that is gone forever and cannot be changed, is a primary cause of depression and sadness. The other favorite destination is the future, a chaotic workshop where we frantically try to construct a perfect life and prepare for every possible disaster. We spend hours rehearsing conversations that may never happen, worrying about illnesses we may never get, and making detailed plans that the river of life will almost certainly ignore. This constant projection into the future, a realm that does not yet exist and is fundamentally unknowable, is the very essence of anxiety. Mindfulness is the practice of calling the time traveler home. It is the gentle but firm reminder that the only place we can ever find peace, the only place life ever happens, is right here. The most direct and accessible way to train this muscle of mindfulness is through the ancient practice of mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. The breath is the perfect anchor for our attention. It is always with us, from the moment we are born to the moment we die. It is always happening in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past or in the future, and it is a neutral process, free of the emotional charge that many of our thoughts carry. Let us try it together, just for a few moments. Find a comfortable position, either sitting in a chair or on a cushion on the floor. You don't need to sit in a special way, only that your back can be straight but not stiff. Allow your eyes to gently close, or if you prefer, rest your gaze softly a few feet in front of you. Now, simply bring your attention to the physical sensation of your own breathing. You don't need to change it, control it, or judge it. Just observe it. You might notice the feeling of the air as it enters and leaves your nostrils. A subtle coolness on the in-breath, a slight warmth on the out-breath. Or you might prefer to rest your attention on the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen or your chest. Choose one spot and let your attention rest there, as if it were a butterfly resting on a flower. For these next few moments, this is your only job, to feel the simple, rhythmic sensation of one in-breath and one out-breath. Now, it is absolutely certain that at some point, your mind will wander away. It will be distracted by a sound, a physical sensation, or, most likely, a thought. This is not a mistake. This is not a failure. It is simply what minds do. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is a moment of perfect mindfulness. In that moment, you have woken up. The practice is what you do next. Without any judgment or frustration, gently acknowledge where your mind went, thinking, and then kindly and patiently escort your attention back to the breath. That is the entire practice. Returning again and again with kindness. Each time you return to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are coming home. While formal meditation is a powerful way to train the mind, the ultimate goal is to bring this quality of presence into every moment of our lives. Mindfulness is portable. You can practice it anywhere. You can practice mindful eating. Instead of consuming your food distractedly while watching a screen, you can take a moment to look at the colors and textures on your plate. You can notice the aroma. When you take a bite, you can chew slowly, experiencing the full flavor, noticing the act of swallowing. You can practice mindful walking. As you walk from your car to your office, you can feel the sensation of your feet, making contact with the ground, the feeling of the air on your skin, the way your body moves through space. You can practice mindful listening. When you are in a conversation, you can give the other person the gift of your full, undivided attention, resisting the urge to formulate your reply while they are still speaking. You listen not just to their words, but to the feeling behind the words. There is a simple Zen story that captures this beautifully. A student asked a great Zen master, "You always seem so calm and centered. What is your secret practice?" The master replied, "My practice is this. When I eat, I just eat. When I walk, I just walk. When I sleep, I just sleep." The student, confused, said, "But master, everyone does that." The master smiled gently. "No," he said. "When you eat, you are thinking about your work. You are worrying about your family. You are planning your evening. When you walk, your mind is already at your destination. When you try to sleep, you are replaying the events of the day. When I eat, I just eat." This is the power and simplicity of mindfulness. It is the art of doing one thing at a time with our whole being. Mindfulness, then, is the essential first skill. It is like turning on the lights in a dark room. For the first time, we can begin to see the contents of our own mind without being lost in them. We can see the thoughts, the emotions, the patterns. But now that the light is on, we might notice that the room is quite cluttered and the air is full of swirling dust. The practice of mindfulness allows us to see this. The next step in our training is to learn how to let the dust settle. We need to cultivate a mind that is not only present, but also stable, calm, and collected. Now that we have learned to be present, we must learn to abide in that presence. We must develop stillness. This leads us to the next stage of our path, the cultivation of calm abiding, or samatha. Having turned on the lamp of mindfulness, we can, for the first time, truly see the inner landscape of our own minds. And what we often see is a flurry of activity, a blizzard of thoughts, memories, and emotions, swirling like countless dust motes in the new light. While it is a profound relief to simply see this chaos without being lost in it, our journey calls us to go deeper. It is not enough to illuminate the storm. We must learn how to let the storm pass. We need to cultivate a mind that is not only present, but also stable, tranquil, and deeply settled. This is the second great skill of mental training on the path. It is the practice of developing calm, abiding, a state of profound stillness known in Pali as samatha. If mindfulness is the act of looking at a glass of muddy water, samatha is the art of setting the glass down so the mud can settle. Imagine your mind is, in fact, a glass of water, and at the bottom rests a thick layer of fine sediment. This sediment represents all of your latent mental habits, your anxieties, your conditioning, your unresolved emotions. The ordinary, untrained mind is in a state of constant agitation. Every worry, every distraction, every external demand is like someone shaking the glass. The result is that the water is perpetually murky, cloudy, and opaque. We try to find clarity. We try to make good decisions. We try to understand ourselves, but it's impossible. We are looking through muddy water. We cannot see the bottom, and we cannot even see the nature of the water itself. This is the state of mental fragmentation and inner noise that so many of us experience as our baseline reality. The practice of samatha is the radical act of ceasing this agitation. It is the practice of setting the glass down and allowing it to be still. Notice, we do not try to force the sediment to the bottom. We don't reach in with a spoon and try to push the mud down. This would only create more turmoil. Instead, we simply remove the cause of the agitation. We stop shaking the glass. We create the conditions for stillness, and then we wait with patience. And what happens? Naturally, inevitably, the laws of nature take over. The heavier particles of sediment, our coarse and frantic thoughts, begin to settle. Then the finer particles, our more subtle anxieties, begin to drift downwards. Over time, the water becomes progressively clearer, more transparent. For the first time, we can see through it. This clarity is not something we manufacture. It is the natural quality of the mind when it is allowed to come to rest. Samatha is the path to rediscovering this innate clarity by cultivating stillness. It is important to distinguish the quality of calm developed in samatha from what we typically think of as concentration. In our culture, concentration often implies a kind of tense, forceful effort. It's a white-knuckled, furrowed brow exertion of will. It's the feeling of trying to solve a difficult math problem, straining the mind. This kind of concentration is tiring. It burns mental energy and is difficult to sustain. Samatha, or what is sometimes called collectedness of mind, samadhi, has a very different flavor. It is relaxed, yet highly alert. It is unified, but not tense. The perfect image is a cat watching a mouse hole. The cat is completely still, its entire being focused on that one point. Its attention is unwavering, sharp and total. Yet, there is no strain in its body. It is in a state of relaxed readiness. It could hold this posture for a very long time. This is the quality of mind we are cultivating in samatha, a gathering and unifying of our mental energy, not a forceful constriction of it. The result is not fatigue, but a deep sense of restfulness, nourishment, and inner power. So how do mindfulness, sati, and calm abiding, samatha, work together? They are often described as the two wings of a bird. Both are necessary for flight. Sati, as we have seen, is the faculty of recognition. It is the guard at the gate of the mind who notices what is arising. Ah, a thought of the future has come. Ah, a feeling of sadness is present. Ah, the mind has wandered from the breath. Samatha, on the other hand, is the faculty of stability, the ability to remain with an object of attention without being easily distracted or swept away. It is the quality of abiding. Imagine you are trying to observe a beautiful, delicate butterfly that has landed on a flower. Mindfulness is the gentle act of noticing the butterfly and bringing your attention to it. But if your hand, your mind, is shaky and unstable, the butterfly will immediately fly away. Samatha is the steadiness of your hand, It is the stability that allows you to keep your attention on the butterfly, to observe its intricate patterns and subtle movements for a prolonged period. Sati is what brings you back to the breath when you wander. Samatha is what allows you to rest with the breath for longer and longer periods, with less and less effort. They are mutually reinforcing. A mindful mind naturally becomes calmer, and a calm mind is much easier to be mindful with. There is a beautiful parable that illustrates the purpose of this practice. Imagine you have lost a precious jewel, a family heirloom, and you know it has fallen into a lake. You go to the edge of the lake, desperate to find it, but the wind is blowing, and the surface of the water is covered in choppy waves. You peer into the water, but all you can see are distorted reflections of the sky and trees, broken and fragmented by the moving water. You cannot see the bottom at all. This is the agitated mind, the shaken glass of water. Trying to find wisdom or self-understanding in this state is impossible. Frustrated, you might try to force the water to be still. You might splash at the waves, trying to flatten them, but this only creates more turbulence and makes the water even murkier. This is the path of tense, forceful concentration. It is counterproductive. Finally, having exhausted your efforts, you follow the advice of a wise old woman from the village. She tells you to simply sit down on the shore, be patient, and wait. You stop fighting. You just sit and watch the lake. You watch your breath. Slowly, the wind begins to die down. The choppy waves subside into gentle ripples. And then, the surface of the lake becomes perfectly still, like a flawless mirror. And now, for the first time, you can see right through the water. The clarity is perfect. And there, resting on the sand at the bottom, is your precious jewel. It was there all along. You could not see it before. Not because it was absent, but because your view was obscured by the agitation on the surface. This parable holds the key to the entire path of meditation. The jewel is wisdom, insight, the truth of our own nature. It is not something we need to create or acquire from the outside. It is already present within us. The lake is our mind. The wind is the constant stream of distractions and worries of our daily life. The practice of samatha is the process of waiting patiently for the wind to subside. It is the cultivation of a mind so still and so clear that it becomes transparent to itself. The benefits are profound. As the mind settles, the inner noise of anxious thoughts and reactive emotions quiets down. We develop a deep resilience, an ability to face strong emotions and difficult situations without being overwhelmed. Just as the deep waters of a lake remain undisturbed by a storm on the surface, we create an inner sanctuary of peace that we can return to at any time. But the ultimate purpose of samatha is not just to feel calm. The calmness is a means to an end. The ultimate purpose of making the water still and clear is so that we can see. Now that the mud has settled and the waves have ceased, we are in the perfect position to investigate the nature of the lake itself. We can look deeply at the jewel, at the sand, at the water, at the very ground of our being. We are ready to move from calm abiding to clear seeing. We are ready for the arising of insight. We are ready for vipassana. Having brought the mind to a state of stillness through the practice of samatha, we arrive at a pivotal moment in our inner journey. We have set down the glass of muddy water. The sediment has settled, and the water has become clear. The surface of the lake is now like glass. But this state of calm, as blissful and restorative as it is not the final goal. It is the preparation for the goal. Its purpose is to create the perfect conditions for the arising of wisdom. Now that the mind is calm and stable, we can begin to look into its depths, to investigate its nature with a clarity that was previously impossible. This act of clear seeing, of deep inquiry, is the practice of vipassana. Vipassana, often translated as insight, means to see things as they truly are. The word is composed of vi, meaning in a special way, or into, and passana, meaning seeing. It is not thinking about things, not analyzing them, not creating philosophies about them. It is a direct, non-conceptual perception of the nature of reality. If samatha is the steadying of the telescope, vipassana is the act of looking through the lens and seeing the stars with breathtaking clarity. If samatha is the silent, still pond, vipassana is the clear seeing of the jewel lying at the bottom. Samatha and vipassana are the two wings of the bird of enlightenment. Samatha provides the stability and concentration, while vipassana provides the wisdom and insight. Together, they enable flight. So, as we peer into the clear, silent water of our stilled minds, what is it that we see? We begin to perceive, directly and intimately, the three fundamental characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, the three marks of existence we have touched upon before. But now, they are no longer just concepts. They become our lived experience. First, we see anicca, or impermanence. We don't just agree with the idea that everything changes. We watch it happen, moment by moment. We observe a thought arise from nowhere, exist for a fleeting second, and vanish. We feel a sensation in the body begin, intensify, change its quality, and dissolve. We see that our entire inner world is a flickering, flowing, dynamic process. There is nothing solid to hold on to. The direct perception of anicca is like watching a movie frame by frame. We see that even the illusion of continuity is made up of countless tiny deaths and rebirths. Second, with this direct vision of impermanence, we begin to perceive dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness, in a new light. We see that trying to find lasting security and happiness in things that are constantly changing is inherently stressful and doomed to fail. We see the subtle friction and tension involved in trying to hold on to pleasant experiences and push away unpleasant ones. We realize that the very nature of conditioned existence has a flavor of unreliability. It is like trying to build a house on the surface of a flowing river. This is not a pessimistic view, it is a pragmatic one. Seeing this clearly allows us to stop seeking ultimate refuge where none can be found, and to begin looking for a more reliable source of peace. Third, and this is the unique and liberating insight of Vipassana, we begin to perceive anatta, or not self. As we watch this endless stream of thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations arising and passing away, a question naturally arises. Who is the one watching all of this? We look for a permanent, solid, independent me who is the owner of these experiences. We look for a CEO in the headquarters of the mind, a ghost in the machine. And the astonishing discovery of Vipassana is that we cannot find one. We see that what we call I, or myself, is, in fact, nothing more than this bundle of ever-changing processes. The body is not a self, it is a changing physical process. The feelings are not a self, they are fleeting emotional energies. The thoughts are not a self, they are transient mental events. The I that we so fiercely protect is a convention, a useful label, but not an ultimate reality. It is a verb, not a noun. The practice of Vipassana, therefore, is the practice of de-identification. It is the systematic cultivation of a space between our awareness and our experience. When a strong emotion like anger arises, the untrained mind immediately identifies with it. I am angry. The story of me and my righteous anger takes over completely. The mind trained in Vipassana, however, takes a step back and observes. It notes, with clarity, the energy of anger has arisen in the mind-body system. There is a feeling of heat in the chest. There are thoughts of blame appearing. It is unpleasant. This is an impersonal process, arising due to causes and conditions. It is impermanent. It will pass. In that moment of observation, you are no longer the anger. You are the awareness that is watching the anger. You are no longer the prisoner in the cell. You are the guard who holds the keys. This space is freedom. This practice of noting or observing is applied to everything. Hearing, thinking, pressure, joy. By consistently observing these phenomena as impersonal, changing processes, the deep-seated, habitual identification with them begins to weaken and dissolve. Imagine a group of people who have lived their entire lives chained inside a dark cave, facing a flat wall. Behind them, unbeknownst to them, is a large fire, and between the fire and the prisoners, other people walk back and forth, carrying statues and various objects. These objects cast flickering shadows on the wall in front of the prisoners. For the prisoners, these shadows are not shadows, they are reality. They have never known anything else. They give the shadows names, they study their movements, they argue about their significance. This is the state of our ordinary, deluded mind. The shadows are our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions. We are so captivated by them, so identified with them, that we believe they are the whole of reality. Now, imagine that one prisoner is unchained and forced to turn around. At first, the The light from the fire is painful to his eyes, which are accustomed only to darkness. He is confused. The real objects casting the shadows seem less real than the shadows themselves. This is the initial difficulty of meditation practice, when our familiar mental world is disturbed. Then, this prisoner is dragged out of the cave entirely and into the full light of the sun. The brilliance is overwhelming, and he is blinded. But as his eyes adjust, he begins to see the world for the first time. He sees real trees, not just shadows of them. He sees the sky, the clouds, the full spectrum of color. He understands that the shadows in the cave were just pale, distorted, second-hand imitations of this vibrant, living reality. This is the arising of vipassana. It is the direct seeing of things as they are. When this person returns to the cave, he can no longer be fooled by the shadow play. He knows its true nature. His fellow prisoners may think he has gone mad, but he is the only one who is truly sane. He is free. The chains of attachment and ignorance have been broken, not by destroying the shadows, but by seeing them for what they are. This is how insight liberates us. Vipassana does not eliminate pain or sadness or anger from our lives. It allows us to see them as fleeting, impersonal shadows on the wall of our consciousness. We no longer take them so personally. We no longer believe their dramatic stories. This seeing, this direct perception, is what cuts the ropes of upadana, of attachment. Why would you desperately cling to a shadow? Why would you build your identity on a flicker of light? The delusion is broken, and with it, the suffering it generates. This is not a process of intellectualizing or positive thinking. It is a profound experiential shift in perception. It is the difference between reading a travel guide about a foreign country and actually setting foot on its soil, breathing its air, and tasting its food. The direct experience changes everything. With the cultivation of sati, we have learned to turn on the light. With samatha, we have learned to let the dust settle. And with vipassana, we are now learning to see the true nature of the room and everything in it. We have acquired the essential tools of mental cultivation. We have the lamp, the steady hand, and the clear eyes. Now, with these powerful instruments at our disposal, we are fully equipped to walk the path laid out for us by the great physician. We are ready to see how this inner training of the mind integrates with our outer life, transforming not just how we feel, but how we speak, how we act, and how we engage with the world. We are ready to explore the Noble Eightfold Path as a complete and holistic way of life. We have now gathered the essential provisions for our journey. We have the lamp of mindfulness, sati, to illuminate our way. We have the stability of calm abiding, samatha, to keep our hands steady. And we have the clear-sightedness of insight, vipassana, to see the landscape as it truly is. We have trained the mind, but a traveler is more than just their mind. A traveler has to walk, to speak, to act, to engage with the world. How do we integrate this profound inner work with our everyday outer life? For this, the great physician provides not just a set of mental exercises, but a complete, holistic design for living. This is the prescription itself, the fourth noble truth, the Noble Eightfold Path. It is best not to think of this as a sequence of 8 linear steps, where you must perfect one before moving to the next. Instead, picture it as a wheel with 8 spokes. Each spoke is essential for the wheel's integrity, and each supports all the others. As the wheel turns, all 8 spokes move together. The Buddha himself used a different metaphor. He called the path a raft. Imagine you are standing on a shore that is dangerous, fraught with anxiety, and subject to the fires of suffering. This is our ordinary state, called samsara. Across a wide, turbulent river is another shore, a shore of safety, peace, and ultimate freedom. That is nirvana. The Noble Eightfold Path is the well-designed, masterfully constructed raft, built for the sole purpose of carrying us safely from this shore of suffering to the far shore of liberation. It is a practical tool, not a dogma. It is something to be used, not worshipped. To make this comprehensive path easier to understand, we can group its 8 factors into 3 essential trainings. The first is shila, which means ethical conduct. This is the very foundation of the raft, the sturdy logs that give it structure. It is how we behave in the world, our relationship with others. The second is samadhi, or mental discipline. This is the skill of lashing the logs together, the concentration and inner work needed to make the raft seaworthy. We have already explored this with mindfulness and calm abiding. The third is panya, or wisdom. This is the map and the compass, the understanding that guides the raft to its destination. We have touched upon this with Vipassana. Now let us look at each of the 8 factors, seeing how they work together to create this vessel of liberation. We begin with the training in wisdom, panya, as our view of the world determines everything else. The first spoke is right view, or right understanding. This is the starting point. It means having the correct map. It is the understanding of the 4 noble truths. It is seeing the world through the lens of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. It is the opposite of moha, or delusion. Right view is not a belief system you are asked to adopt blindly. It is a working hypothesis, a provisional map that the rest of the path will ask you to verify through your own direct experience. The second spoke is right intention, or right thought. If right view is the map, right intention is the compass that keeps us oriented in the correct direction. It means consciously cultivating wholesome intentions and abandoning unwholesome ones. Specifically, it points to 3 areas. First, the intention of renunciation, of letting go, which is the antidote to the poison of greed. Second, the intention of loving kindness and goodwill, the antidote to the poison of aversion. And third, the intention of harmlessness or compassion, the antidote to cruelty. It is the simple, moment-to-moment practice of asking, what is the motivation behind this thought, this word, this action? Is it coming from a place of wisdom and compassion, or from the 3 poisons? Next, we come to the training in ethical conduct, shila, the foundation of our outer life. The third spoke is right speech. This is a deeply practical and relevant teaching for our modern world. It calls on us to abstain from 4 kinds of harmful speech. First, lying. Second, divisive speech, which means gossip or slander that turns one person against another. Third, harsh speech, which includes insults, verbal abuse, yelling, and the casual cruelty of online trolling. And fourth, idle chatter, meaningless talk that distracts the mind and wastes time. Instead, we are encouraged to cultivate speech that is truthful, kind, helpful, and spoken at the right time. The fourth spoke is right action. This concerns our physical actions in the world. At its core, it is an invitation to live in a way that honors the sanctity of life and the well-being of others. The classic formulation is to abstain from taking life, to abstain from taking what is not given, stealing, and to abstain from sexual misconduct. It is a call to move through the world gently, with respect for all beings and their right to exist peacefully. The fifth spoke is right livelihood. This asks us to consider the ethical dimension of how we earn our living. It encourages us to find work that is not harmful to ourselves or others. The traditional texts list occupations to be avoided, such as those dealing in weapons, human beings, meat production, intoxicants, or poisons. In a modern context, this is a profound invitation to align our work with our values. It asks us, does my work contribute to the well-being of the world, or does it contribute to the suffering? It challenges us to find a way to support ourselves that doesn't compromise our integrity or cause harm. Finally, we come to the training in mental discipline, samadhi, the inner cultivation we have already begun to explore. The sixth spoke is right effort. This is the engine of the raft. It's not about straining or white-knuckled force, but about applying intelligent and balanced energy to our mental training. This effort has 4 aspects. The effort to prevent unwholesome thoughts and emotions from arising. The effort to abandon them if they have already arisen. The effort to cultivate wholesome states, like kindness and mindfulness, that have not yet arisen, and the effort to maintain and develop these wholesome states that are already present. It is the practice of being a gentle but diligent gardener of our own mind. The seventh spoke is right mindfulness, samasati. This, as we have seen, is the lookout on the raft. It is the faculty of clear, non-judgmental awareness that observes our inner and outer worlds. It is mindfulness that knows whether our speech is wholesome or unwholesome. It is mindfulness that recognizes the arising of a negative intention and allows us to let it go. It oversees and informs every other part of the path. The eighth and final spoke is right concentration or right collectedness, sama samadhi. This is the state of mind we cultivate through samatha practice. It is the deep, unified, and tranquil state of mind that comes from sustained practice. This collected mind is the rudder of the raft, keeping it stable and on course, even in turbulent waters. It is this concentrated mind that has the power and clarity to penetrate reality and achieve the deep insight of vipassana. These 8 factors work together, in concert. A life of ethical conduct, shila, reduces feelings of guilt and remorse, which naturally leads to a calmer mind, making it easier to practice mental discipline. Samadhi, a calm and concentrated mind, samadhi, is the necessary platform for the arising of true wisdom, panya. And true wisdom, panya, reinforces our commitment to living an ethical life. Each spoke strengthens the others, making the wheel stronger and truer with every rotation. Let us return to the beautiful metaphor of the raft. A person, wanting to escape a dangerous shore, diligently gathers the materials of the eightfold path. They build their raft with care and skill. They push it out into the turbulent river of life and begin the long, arduous journey. Using all their effort, mindfulness, and wisdom, they navigate the currents and finally, thankfully, arrive at the far shore of liberation. Now, the Buddha asks, what should this wise person do with the raft that has saved them? Should they lift it onto their shoulders and carry it with them as they walk on dry land, thinking, this is the raft that saved me, I must never let it go? Of course not. That would be a foolish and heavy burden. The wise person, he said, would moor the raft at the water's edge, expressing gratitude for its service, and then walk on, free and unencumbered. The path is a tool. It is absolutely essential for crossing the river. But it is not the destination. Its purpose is to be used and then let go of. We must not cling even to the teachings themselves, turning them into a rigid identity or a dogma. Their sole purpose is our freedom. As we travel this path, as we skillfully use this raft, a strange and wonderful thing begins to happen. The very sense of a traveler, the solid I who is making this journey, begins to seem less solid, less definite. The practice itself, particularly the cultivation of right view, leads us to turn our insight upon our own identity, questioning the very existence of a permanent, separate self. This is one of the most profound and liberating inquiries on the path, the journey into the heart of not-self, or anatta. Having built our raft with the wood of ethical conduct, lashed it together with the ropes of mental discipline, and steered it with the map of wisdom, we have been crossing the turbulent river of life. Throughout this journey, we have been focused on the raft and the river, but now, as we become more skilled in our practice, the light of our inquiry begins to turn back upon the traveler itself. We begin to ask the most profound question of all. Who is this I that is making this journey? Who is this I that suffers? Who is this I that seeks liberation? In investigating this question, we arrive at the heart of the Buddha's most unique, most challenging, and ultimately, most liberating teaching. It is the teaching of anatta, or not-self. In the West, our entire psychological and cultural framework is built upon the idea of a solid individual self. We strive to find ourselves, to be true to ourselves, to love ourselves. We think of the self as a core entity, a CEO in the headquarters of the mind, a permanent essence that resides somewhere behind our eyes. We feel that I am the one who owns my body, my thoughts, and my feelings. This assumption is so deep, so fundamental, that we rarely think to question it. The teaching of anatta invites us to do just that. It asks us to look with the clear, steady light of our cultivated awareness for this self that we believe ourselves to be. Anatta does not mean that we don't exist. You are clearly here, reading these words. It means that when we search for a permanent, independent, unchanging self, separate from our experiences, we absolutely cannot find one. The Buddha suggested a method for this investigation. He taught that what we conventionally call a self is actually a dynamic, interdependent process, a collection of 5 changing components, which he called the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. To understand this, think of a chariot. A chariot is made of wheels, an axle, a frame, and a yoke. But is the chariot a separate thing from its parts? Number. Chariot is just the convenient name we give to the functioning assembly of these parts. In the same way, self is the name we give to the assembly of these 5 aggregates. The first aggregate is form. This is our physical body, our bones, our skin, our organs, our breath. We tend to think, this is my body, but look closely, is it? Your body is in a constant state of flux, of anicca. It is composed of elements from the food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, the air you have breathed. It is not a static object you possess, but a flowing river of physical processes. Are you this body? Or is the body just a changing physical experience? The second aggregate is feeling. This refers to the raw sensations that arise whenever our senses make contact with the world. They are categorized into three types: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. The warmth of the sun on your skin is a pleasant feeling. The ache of a headache is an unpleasant feeling. The sensation of your clothes against your skin is likely a neutral feeling. These feelings arise, and they pass away. Are you your feelings? If you were, then when a pleasant feeling ended, a part of you would die. When sadness arose, you would be sadness. But we can observe these feelings. They are guests that come and go. The third aggregate is perception. This is the faculty of recognition and labeling. Your eyes see a shape and color, and the aggregate of perception says, that is a red car. Your ears hear a sound, and perception says, that is a bird singing. It interprets the raw data of the senses. Are you your perceptions? Or is perception simply a mental function, like a software program that identifies patterns? The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is a very broad and important category that includes all of our volitional activities. Our thoughts, intentions, beliefs, opinions, moods, habits, our anger, our love, our ambition, our jealousy. These mental formations are the most active and noisy part of our mind. We identify with them so strongly. We say, I think, and we believe we are the thinker. But with mindfulness, we can see that thoughts simply arise and pass away on their own. Are you your thoughts? Or are they like clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness? The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the fundamental faculty of knowing, the raw awareness that arises when a sense organ connects with its object. There is eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, and so on. It is the simple knowing that something is present. It is the light that makes seeing possible. Is this core awareness the real you? But consciousness, too, is dependent on conditions. Eye consciousness cannot arise without an eye and a visible object. It is not a monolithic, independent entity. When we look deeply into these 5 categories, which encompass every single aspect of our personal experience, we find something astonishing. We can find form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, all flowing and changing, but we cannot find a separate I who is behind them, who owns them, who is in control. The owner is nowhere to be found. The CEO is not in the office. The self we have been searching for is an illusion, a beautiful and persistent story woven from these 5 changing threads. There is a profound Zen story that perfectly illustrates the liberating power of this insight. A man was sitting in his small boat, meditating on a calm, misty lake. He was feeling deeply peaceful. Suddenly, with a loud jolt, another boat struck his. Immediately, the man's peace was shattered. He was filled with anger. Who is this clumsy fool? He thought. How dare they be so careless and disturb my meditation? He turned around, ready to shout at the person in the other boat. But as he looked, he saw that the other boat was empty. It had simply come untied from its mooring and had drifted silently across the lake in the mist. In that instant, all of his anger vanished. It evaporated completely. He couldn't be angry at an empty boat. The insight here is powerful. What caused the man's anger? It was not the bump itself. It was his immediate assumption that there was a self in the other boat who had intentionally or carelessly harmed his self. The conflict was entirely created by the belief in 2 separate selves. When one of those selves was revealed to be an illusion, an empty boat, the basis for the anger and conflict dissolved. Now, Vipassana asks us to take this one step further. What if we could learn to see that the boat we are in is also, in a sense, empty of a permanent, independent, controlling self? How many of our resentments, our hurt feelings, our anxieties, and our conflicts would simply dissolve, just like the man's anger on the lake? So much of our suffering comes from taking things personally, from the constant project of defending and validating me. This teaching can initially sound frightening. Does this mean I am nothing? Is this annihilation? This is a natural fear, but it is based on a misunderstanding. The teaching of anatta is not the annihilation of the person, it is the annihilation of an illusion. And letting go of an illusion is not a loss, it is a profound relief. The belief in a separate, solid self is an immense burden. It is a full-time, high-stress job to constantly protect it, promote it, compare it to other selves, worry about its past, and secure its future. Seeing through this illusion means you are fired from this exhausting job. It is a great unburdening. It leads not to nihilism, but to a state of incredible lightness and freedom. The need to be right subsides. The fear of criticism lessens. The frantic grasping to build up the ego relaxes. When there is no solid self to defend, we become more open, more flexible, and far more fearless. This insight into anatta cuts to the very root of the three poisons. Greed arises from the desire to gratify myself. Aversion arises from the desire to protect myself from what it dislikes. And delusion is the fundamental belief in this myself in the first place. When the illusion of the target, the self, is seen through, the poisons lose their power. This naturally leads us to a new and beautiful question. If I am not this isolated, separate self, cut off from the rest of the universe, then what am I? If a wave on the surface of the ocean were to look deeply into its own nature, it would see the rising and the falling, the movement and the spray, but it would not find any separate, independent waveness. What it would find is water. It would realize that it is not just in the ocean, it is the ocean, expressing itself for a time as a wave. The illusion of its separateness would vanish, replaced by the profound truth of its connection to the entire body of water. This is the next stage of our understanding. Having deconstructed the illusion of the separate self, we are now ready to discover the beautiful, intricate, and liberating reality of our profound interconnectedness with all of life. Having journeyed into the very heart of our perceived identity and discovered the profound truth of anatta, or not self, we are left at the edge of a new and beautiful landscape. We have seen that we cannot find a solid, separate, independent I at the core of our being. The traveler on the raft has looked at itself and found itself to be empty of a separate existence. This realization, while initially disorienting, is the gateway to an even more profound truth. If we are not separate, then what are we? The teaching of anatta deconstructs a false reality. The teaching that follows constructs a true one. This is the teaching of interconnectedness, a concept beautifully captured by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh with the word interbeing. This is not a complex philosophy. It is a simple, observable truth. To be is to interbe. Nothing in this universe can exist by itself. Everything is profoundly connected to, and made of, everything else. Let us investigate this together, not with abstract logic, but with the quiet contemplation of a simple object. Imagine you are holding a single sheet of paper in your hands. We call it a sheet of paper. We think of it as a single, separate thing. But if we look deeply, with the eyes of interbeing, what do we see? Look closely, and you will see the sunshine. The sunshine is in the paper. Without the sun, the forest cannot grow. Without the forest, there are no trees, and so this sheet of paper cannot exist. So, the sun is not just outside the paper. Its energy is an essential part of it. Now look again, and you can see a cloud floating in the sky. Without the cloud, there is no rain. Without rain, the tree cannot drink and grow. So the cloud is in the sheet of paper. If you were to somehow remove the cloud from the paper would cease to exist. And look deeper, you can see the logger who cut down the tree. You can see his hands, his sweat. You can see the wheat that made the bread he ate for his lunch. You can see the farmer who grew the wheat, and the earth, and the sun, and the rain that nourished it. You can see the logger's parents, and their parents, and a whole lineage of ancestors flowing into that single act of cutting the tree. You can see the person who works at the paper mill, the truck driver who transported the logs, the engineer who designed the machinery, the miners who dug the iron ore to build that machinery. Their lives, their efforts, their dreams are all present, right here, in this sheet of paper. The paper, you see, cannot be by itself. It is full of everything else. It is full of the entire cosmos. It interres with the sun, the rain, the earth, the forest, and all of humanity. If you were to return any one of these elements to its source, if you gave back the sunshine to the sun, the water to the cloud, the logger to his parents, the sheet of paper would become impossible. To be, it must interbe with everything else. Now, let us turn this same gentle, penetrating gaze upon ourselves. We think, this is me. I am a separate self. But are we? Look at your hand. This hand is a direct continuation of your mother and your father. Their life and the life of their parents and all your ancestors flows in your veins. You are the crest of a wave of humanity that stretches back through time. You are not separate from your ancestors, you are their living manifestation. Now feel the air filling your lungs. This air, this oxygen, was created by plankton in the sea and trees in the forest. You are breathing in the forest. The forest is breathing in the carbon dioxide you exhale. You and the forest inter-are. You cannot exist without the forest, and the forest composition is affected by your existence. The boundary is not so clear. Think of the last meal you ate. That food contains the sunshine, the soil, the rain. It contains the work of the farmer, the picker, the packer, the grocer. When you eat it, all of those elements become your body. The cosmos is nourishing you, and you are becoming the cosmos. Now think of your mind, your ideas, your language. Did you invent the words you are thinking with? Number? They came from your parents, your teachers, your friends, from books, from culture. Every thought you have is a conversation with thousands of years of human history. Every idea is a continuation. If we look deeply, with honesty, we are forced to the same conclusion we reached with the sheet of paper. We cannot find a me that is separate from the universe. We are with everything and everyone. The sense of being a solid, separate, skin-encapsulated ego is an illusion, a trick of our limited perception. We are not a drop in the ocean. We are the entire ocean in a single drop. Let us return to the metaphor of the wave. The wave, in its investigation of anatta, discovers it has no separate self, no independent waveness. But in that very same moment, it makes an even greater discovery. It is made entirely of water. It is a manifestation of the entire ocean. The wave's life and the ocean's life are not two different things. In realizing its own emptiness of a separate self, it realizes its fullness of the whole ocean. This is the profound paradox. The discovery of our not-self is simultaneously the discovery of our boundless interbeing, and this has the power to transform our deepest fears. The wave may fear crashing on the shore, fearing its own death and disappearance, but when it realizes it is the ocean, the fear vanishes. How can the ocean die? It can only change its form. Our fear of death comes from our fierce attachment to this little, separate wave we call me. When we begin to identify with the whole ocean of life, the fear of our own little wave dissolving loses its terrifying power. This realization is not just a beautiful piece of spiritual poetry. It is the absolute foundation for true compassion and ethical action. As long as we believe we are separate selves, compassion will always be a secondary concern. It will be something we should do, a moral duty. But when we understand into being, compassion becomes the most natural and logical response to the world. If we see that we are with all beings, then harming another person is no longer harming another. It is, in a very real sense, harming ourselves. Polluting the air is not harming some abstract environment. It is poisoning the very air that becomes our own body. The pain of another is our own pain, manifesting in a different part of the one great body of life. Their joy is our joy. This is why wisdom, panya, and compassion, karuna, are said to be the two great wings of enlightenment. They are inseparable. The deep seeing of our interconnectedness, wisdom, naturally gives rise to a boundless, unconditional love for all parts of our larger self, compassion. With this understanding, our relationship to the world shifts from one of fear, competition, and separation to one of kinship, care, and love. This profound feeling of kinship is not something we need to artificially create. It is the natural state of a mind that has been cleared of the delusion of a separate self. The seeds of this boundless love are already within us. They simply need to be watered. The Buddhist tradition offers a powerful and systematic set of practices for doing exactly this. for actively cultivating the heart, for transforming our intellectual understanding of interbeing into a lived, felt reality. This is the practice of the four immeasurables, or the four divine abodes. We are now ready to move from seeing our connection to actively embodying it, beginning with the foundational practice of generating boundless, unconditional loving kindness, or metta, for ourselves and for all beings. The profound realization of anatta, not self, has dismantled the illusion of our separateness. In its place, the beautiful truth of interbeing has dawned, revealing that we are not isolated islands, but interconnected expressions of a single, unified whole. We are all leaves on the same tree, waves in the same ocean. To understand this intellectually is a great step, but to feel it in our hearts, to live from this place of deep kinship, requires a new kind of training. It requires that we actively cultivate the qualities of an open and boundless heart. This is the practice of the Brahmaviharas, or the four immeasurables, four states of mind that, when developed, lead to the highest form of happiness. The foundation of this heart training, the very first seed we must plant and water, is the practice of metta. Metta is a Pali word, often translated as loving kindness. It is not the possessive romantic love of attachment, nor is it mere sentimentality. Metta is a steady, unconditional, and universal friendliness. It is the sincere and heartfelt wish for the well-being and happiness of oneself and all beings, without exception and without discrimination. It is the radiant warmth of the sun, which shines on the beautiful flower and the discarded trash with equal generosity. Metta is the direct antidote to the poison of dosa, or aversion. It systematically softens the hardened heart, dissolves anger and resentment, and replaces fear with friendliness. It is important to remember that this is a bhavana, a mental cultivation. It is not about forcing a feeling. It is about setting an intention. Like tending a garden, we cannot force a flower to bloom, but we can create the ideal conditions for it to do so. We can remove the weeds of ill will and water the soil with our patient, gentle intention. The practice of metta meditation follows a specific, wise, and structured sequence. It begins in the one place many of us are most reluctant to look, with ourselves. We cannot offer water to others from an empty well. We cannot shine a light for others if our own lamp has no oil. For our love to be a genuine offering, and not a subtle form of seeking approval, it must be rooted in a genuine friendliness toward our own being. This is often the most difficult step. Our inner critic is so loud, our sense of unworthiness so deep, that offering kindness to ourselves can feel awkward or even fraudulent. But here, we must be patient. We find a quiet place and gently bring ourselves to mind. We may hold a hand over our heart, and silently, softly, we offer ourselves the phrases of metta. These are not affirmations to force a belief, but gentle wishes, like a mother's lullaby to a restless child. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I live with ease. We repeat these phrases gently, allowing the intention behind them to slowly permeate our being. If we feel nothing, that is perfectly fine. If we feel resistance, we simply acknowledge it with kindness. The practice is in the sincere offering, not in the result. Once we have spent time watering the seed of metta for ourselves, we expand the circle. We bring to mind a person for whom we feel easy, uncomplicated love and respect. This could be a dear friend, a beloved family member, a mentor, or even a pet. This is called the benefactor, and their image helps the feeling of metta to flow more naturally. We hold their image in our mind's eye, and we offer them the same wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you live with ease. We bask in the warmth of this feeling, the simple, unselfish joy of wishing another well. From here, we expand the circle of kindness further. We now bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone we see in our daily lives, but for whom we feel neither like nor dislike. It could be the cashier at the grocery store, the mail carrier, a person we see on our daily commute. We often live in a world where we treat such people as functional objects, not as fellow beings who, just like us, wish to be happy. In this stage, we deliberately break that habit. We bring their face to mind, and we offer them the same heartfelt wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. This stage is powerful. It stretches the muscle of the heart, teaching it to offer kindness beyond the narrow confines of personal connection. It begins to universalize our goodwill. Now, we approach the most challenging and transformative stage of the practice. We bring to mind a difficult person. This is someone with whom we have conflict, someone who has hurt us, or someone we simply find irritating. It is crucial to approach this stage with wisdom and care. This is not about condoning harmful actions or forcing a superficial forgiveness. This is a practice for our freedom. We must remember that holding on to hatred and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only harms ourselves, keeping our own hearts imprisoned in the fire of dosa. Wishing this person happiness can be a radical act of self-liberation. It can mean, may you be free from the suffering that causes you to act in harmful ways. May you find peace, so that you no longer create pain for yourself and others. If the person is too difficult, we can start with someone who is only mildly annoying. We hold their image, we acknowledge the difficult feelings that arise, and as best we can, we extend the wish. May you also be happy. May you also be free from suffering. This practice has the power to dissolve ancient knots of anger and grief in our own hearts. Finally, having worked through these specific categories, we let our metta become boundless. We radiate this feeling of loving kindness outwards in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the left, to the right, above and below. We extend it to all beings in our city, our country, our world, to friends and strangers, to humans and animals, to beings seen and unseen, in all realms of existence. We hold the entire world in our heart and offer the simple, powerful wish. May all beings everywhere be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. In this final stage, our heart transcends all boundaries and touches the immeasurable quality that gives this practice its name. The power of metta is not to be underestimated. It is not a passive, sentimental feeling. It is a formidable force for transformation. The story is told of the Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, who, in an attempt to usurp him, unleashed a ferocious, intoxicated elephant named Nalagiri to charge at the Buddha and trample him in the streets of the city. The people panicked and fled in terror. The Buddha's faithful attendant, Ananda, placed himself in front of the Buddha to protect him. The Buddha gently told him to step aside. He then stood his ground, perfectly calm, and turned his full, unwavering attention to the raging elephant. He did not prepare a weapon or a defense. He simply radiated a powerful, boundless field of pure metta. As the charging beast entered this palpable aura of loving kindness, a change occurred. Its frenzied rage began to subside. Its steps slowed. Its eyes, once filled with fury, softened. It came to a halt before the Buddha, lowered its great head, and knelt peacefully at his feet. Metta had subdued the seemingly untamable rage. This is the power we cultivate in our own hearts, the power to tame the raging elephants of our own anger, fear, and ill will. As we practice metta, our heart becomes softer, more open, more resilient. We begin to see the world through the lens of friendliness and kinship. Wishing for others to be happy becomes a natural habit of the mind. But what happens when we encounter a being who is clearly not happy? What happens when our open heart, now sensitized by metta, comes into contact with clear and present suffering? A new quality of heart naturally begins to tremble and awaken. It is the sincere wish not just for that being to be happy, but for that being to be free from their pain. This movement of the heart, from wishing for happiness to wishing for the end of suffering, is the gateway to the second of the four immeasurables, the profound and active state of compassion, or karuna. Having opened the heart with the gentle, radiant warmth of metta, we have cultivated a universal friendliness towards ourselves and all beings. We have made the sincere wish for all to be happy. Our heart is now like a well-tended garden, its soil soft and fertile. But as we look upon the world from this open-hearted state, we inevitably see that all beings are not happy. We see struggle, we see pain, we see confusion, we see the inescapable reality of dukkha. The heart that has been softened by metta cannot remain indifferent to this. When it encounters suffering, it naturally trembles. It quivers with a profound resonance. This trembling of the heart, this deep and powerful wish for beings to be free from their pain, is the birth of the second immeasurable, the second quality of the awakened heart. This is karuna, or compassion. If metta is the wish, may you be happy, karuna is the wish, may you be free from suffering. It is the natural response of love when it is confronted with pain. But like metta, karuna is a quality that is often misunderstood in our culture. We must first distinguish it from its near enemies, the states of mind that look like compassion but are not. The first of these is pity. Pity looks down from above. It creates separation. It says, "Oh, you poor thing, I am so glad I am not in your position." Pity maintains the boundary between me, the fortunate one, and you, the unfortunate one. It is rooted in a subtle sense of superiority and fear. The other near enemy is what we might call empathic distress or burnout. This is the state of becoming so overwhelmed by another's pain that we drown in it ourselves. We feel their anxiety, their grief, their despair so intensely that we become paralyzed, anxious, and unable to help. This is not skillful compassion. This is simply co-suffering. It helps no one and exhausts our own heart. True karuna is the skillful middle path between the cold distance of pity and the overwhelming flood of empathic distress. Karuna connects. It does not separate. Based on the wisdom of interbeing, it understands this suffering is not just your suffering, it is our suffering, but it does not drown. It is rooted in the stability and equanimity we have cultivated through our practice. It is the brave, strong, and tender heart of a lifeguard who can enter turbulent waters to rescue someone because they are a strong swimmer themselves and will not be pulled under. Compassion is the marriage of a soft heart and a strong back. At the core of karuna is a quality that is essential for this entire path: courage. It is the courage to be with suffering. Our deepest instinct is to turn away from pain. When we see suffering on the news, we change the channel. When a friend tells us of their grief, we quickly try to cheer them up or offer easy platitudes because their pain makes us uncomfortable. And most of all, when we feel our own pain, own anxiety, loneliness, or failure, we immediately seek distraction. We numb ourselves with food, with entertainment, with work. Karuna is the practice of reversing this habit. It is the cultivation of the courage to stay, to be willing to sit with the unpleasant, with the heartbreaking, with the uncomfortable, without turning away. It is the strength to bear witness to pain, both our own and others, with a heart that remains open and tender. This courage is not a form of grim endurance. It is a strength born of wisdom, the understanding that only by facing suffering can we ever hope to transform it. Like metta, karuna is a quality that we can intentionally cultivate through meditation. And again, the practice begins with ourselves. We cannot offer a balm to others that we are unwilling to apply to our own wounds. We sit quietly and bring to mind our own areas of suffering, our struggles, our anxieties, our physical or emotional pain. Instead of pushing it away, we allow ourselves to feel it, and we gently offer ourselves the wish of compassion. May I be free from this suffering. May this pain be eased. May I find peace. This is not an act of self-pity, but one of radical self-acceptance and kindness. It acknowledges our shared humanity. Then we expand the circle. We bring to mind a person we love who is currently suffering. We hold their image and the reality of their pain in our heart, and we extend the wish. May you be free from your suffering. May your worries subside. May you find the strength to meet this challenge. May your pain be healed. We breathe in their pain, and we breathe out a wish for their peace and well-being. We then expand this further to the neutral people in our lives, and even to the difficult people, recognizing that their harmful actions are almost always rooted in their own deep suffering. Finally, we open our awareness to the suffering of the entire world. We think of those affected by war, by poverty, by injustice, by natural disasters, by illness. The sheer scale of it can be overwhelming. The practice here is not to solve all the world's problems in our mind, but to simply allow our heart to connect with this shared reality of dukkha and to radiate the unwavering, boundless wish. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. This practice transforms our heart, making it a source of strength and healing. It builds our capacity to be with pain without being broken by it. This inner cultivation of karuna is the essential fuel for outer action. True compassion is not a passive feeling. It is the most powerful engine for altruism known to humankind. The wish for suffering to end naturally blossoms into the impulse to do something to end it. Compassion in action can be as simple as offering a listening ear to a friend, making a meal for a sick neighbor, or volunteering in one's community. And on a larger scale, it is the driving force behind every great movement for social justice, every act of humanitarian relief, every effort to protect our planet. It is wisdom and love, made manifest in the world. It is the heart's response to the cry of the world. In the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, this ideal is embodied in the archetypal figure of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion. A bodhisattva is a being who, on the verge of final enlightenment, chooses to remain in the world out of a deep, compassionate vow to help all other beings achieve liberation first. The name Avalokiteshvara means the one who hears the cries of the world. The legend says that when he attained great insight and looked down upon the world, he was so overwhelmed by the depth and breadth of suffering that he saw, his heart broke, and his head shattered into 1,000 pieces. In that moment of compassionate crisis, a higher power, representing his own perfected nature, reassembled him with 1,000 arms, and in the palm of each hand was an eye. This image symbolizes the nature of true compassion. The 1,000 eyes to see suffering in all its forms, in every corner of existence, and the 1,000 arms to skillfully reach out and offer help in countless different ways. Avalokiteshvara represents the active, engaged, and boundless potential of our own compassionate heart. With the practice of metta, we have learned to rejoice in the potential for happiness in all beings. With the practice of karuna, we have learned to be present with their suffering and to wish for its end. Our heart is becoming balanced, capable of holding both the light and the dark. But to complete this training, there is another essential quality we must cultivate. If we only focus on suffering, our journey can become heavy, sad, and prone to burnout. We must also train ourselves to feel genuine, unselfish joy when we see others happy and succeeding. We must learn to celebrate the good fortune of others as if it were our own. This is the third of the 4 immeasurables, the joyful and uplifting practice of sympathetic joy, or mudita. Having cultivated a heart that is open to all beings with loving kindness, or metta, we have learned to wish them well. Having developed a heart that is courageous with compassion, or karuna, we have learned to stand with them in their suffering. Our love is becoming deep and resilient, but a complete heart, a truly balanced and boundless heart, must be able to participate in the entire spectrum of life, not just its struggles. If we only focus on wishing for happiness to arise and wishing for suffering to cease, our spiritual path can become serious, heavy, and even subtly problem-focused. We risk forgetting the sheer, unadulterated joy that is also a fundamental part of existence. To bring our hearts into full and radiant balance, we must learn to celebrate. We must train ourselves to delight in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. This is the third of the 4 immeasurables. It is the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the joy we feel in response to another's joy. It is the opposite of jealousy and envy. It is the heart's happy congratulations to the universe. In a world that is often competitive and driven by a scarcity mindset, mudita can seem like the most counterintuitive of the heart practices. We are subtly conditioned to believe that life is a zero-sum game. If someone else gets the promotion, that means I didn't. If someone else is praised for their talent, that means my own talent is diminished. If someone else's life looks perfect on social media, it must mean that my own life is lacking. This comparative mind is the source of the poison of envy. Envy is a cold, contracting, and deeply isolating emotion. It whispers to us that the happiness of others is a threat to our own. It makes us feel small, resentful, and alone. It creates a barrier between ourselves and the world, preventing us from sharing in the goodness that surrounds us. Mudita is the direct and powerful antidote to this poison. It is the radical and liberating practice of choosing to see the happiness of others, not as a loss, but as a gain. When we examine it closely, envy is profoundly illogical. The happiness of another person does not, in any way, diminish the amount of happiness available in the world. Joy is not a finite resource like oil or gold, where one person's gain is another's loss. Joy is infinitely renewable. In fact, It is the one resource that increases when it is shared. When you practice mudita, you are making an incredibly intelligent choice for your own well-being. If you only allow yourself to be happy when good things happen to you, you have only one, often unreliable, source of joy. But if you train your heart to feel joy when good things happen to anyone, you have suddenly given yourself access to over 7 billion potential sources of happiness. Every time you see a couple in love, a child laughing, a friend succeeding, a stranger having a good day, it becomes an opportunity for your own heart to feel a spark of joy. To practice mudita is to transform the entire world into a potential source of your own delight. It is the ultimate win-win proposition. Like the other heart practices, we can cultivate mudita through a gentle, structured meditation. We begin, as always, where it is easiest. Bring to mind a dear friend or a loved one. Now, instead of focusing on their struggles, as we did in Karuna practice, deliberately search for their joys. Think of something genuinely good that has recently happened in their life. Perhaps they achieved a long-sought goal. Perhaps they are enjoying a new relationship. Perhaps you simply recall an image of them laughing, their face full of authentic happiness. Hold that image, that reality of their joy, in your heart. Now, instead of letting any flicker of envy arise, consciously rejoice with them. Offer them the phrases of mudita. I am so happy for you. I rejoice in your happiness and good fortune. May your joy continue and increase. Feel the warmth, the expansiveness of celebrating another's success. Allow their joy to be your joy. Next, we stretch the heart's capacity. We bring to mind a neutral persona colleague, an acquaintance. Think of some good fortune that has come to them. Perhaps they got a promotion you also wanted. Perhaps they just bought a new house or went on a wonderful vacation. Notice, without judgment, if any feeling of envy or comparison arises, acknowledge it gently. Ah, envy is present. Then, see if you can make a small shift. As an experiment, try to offer them a genuine wish of joy. You, like me, are just seeking happiness. In this moment, you have found it. I rejoice with you. May your happiness continue. This practice begins to dismantle the ego's competitive structure, replacing it with a sense of shared community. The most advanced stage of the practice is to bring to mind someone whose success we find particularly difficult. This might be a rival or someone we feel has succeeded at our expense. This is where the practice becomes truly transformative. First, we must acknowledge the pain in our own heart, the envy, the resentment, the feeling of injustice. We meet these feelings with compassion. Then, from that place of self-compassion, we look at the other person and recognize that they too are simply a being seeking happiness in the only way they know how. Their success, however it came about, is a moment of happiness for them. To free our own hearts from the prison of resentment, we can try to find a small space within us to wish them well, to rejoice in the simple fact that a being has found a moment of joy, even if we find the person difficult. This is a profound act of healing for ourselves. There is a lovely story of a wise man who lived in a very simple hut with almost no possessions. One day, a wealthy merchant, dressed in fine silks, passed by and saw the man sitting contentedly at his door. Feeling a sense of pity, the merchant said, "You poor man, how can you possibly be happy living in such poverty, with nothing to your name?" The wise man smiled, his eyes twinkling. "On the contrary," he said, "I am the richest man in this entire village." He pointed to the grand house of the merchant. "Your beautiful home gives my eyes great pleasure, and I rejoice in the comfort you have, so I share in your wealth." He then pointed to a nearby garden where a young family was laughing and playing. "Their love and laughter fill my heart, so I share in their joy." He pointed to a scholar walking by, reading a scroll. "His deep learning illuminates the world, so I share in his wisdom." The wise man looked back at the merchant. "All of their happiness is my happiness. All of their good fortune is a source of my delight. Tell me, sir, how could I possibly be poor?" This is the power of mudita. It allows us to become infinitely rich. It unlocks a boundless source of joy that is available to us in every moment, simply by shifting our perspective from one of lack to one of appreciation. We have now explored 3 of the great dwellings of the heart. With metta, we wish all beings happiness. With karuna, we stand with them in their sorrow. With mudita, we celebrate with them in their joy. We are cultivating a heart that is deeply engaged with the world, a heart that is empathetic to the full, messy, beautiful spectrum of life. But to hold all of this, the joy, the pain, the hopes, the fears, without being constantly thrown off balance, without becoming attached to the good and overwhelmed by the bad, requires one final, essential quality. We need a vast, stable, and spacious container for our love. We need the unshakable peace that allows the heart to remain open and steady, no matter what the winds of fortune may bring. This is the fourth and culminating immeasurable, the profound balancing force of equanimity, or upekkha. We have walked the sublime path of the heart, cultivating a boundless love for all of life. With metta, we have learned to wish for the happiness of all beings. With karuna, we have found the courage to sit with their sorrow. With mudita, we have learned to celebrate in their joy. Our heart is now open, engaged, and deeply connected to the world. It feels everything. But this very openness presents a new challenge. In opening ourselves to the fullness of life, we also open ourselves to its turbulence. How do we keep our hearts from being constantly thrown into elation by joy and plunged into despair by sorrow? How can we love the world completely without being shattered by it? The answer lies in the fourth and culminating quality of the awakened heart. It is the ground that supports all the others. It is the profound and unshakable peace known as upekkha, or equanimity. Upekkha is perhaps the most misunderstood of the four immeasurables. It is often confused with its near enemy, indifference. But the two could not be more different. Indifference is a state of coldness, of withdrawal, of not caring. It is a defense mechanism of a heart that is closed and afraid. It says, "This doesn't concern me." Equanimity, on the other hand, is born of a heart that is radically open, a love that is so vast and all-encompassing that it can hold the entirety of life's joys and sorrows without being disturbed. It is a state of profound balance, spaciousness, and non-reactive presence. If indifference is a stone, hard and unfeeling, equanimity is the vastness of space itself, which allows planets and stars to burn and spin within it without being affected by them. It is the ultimate expression of wisdom and love combined. In our daily lives, we are constantly buffeted by what the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds. These are the inevitable ups and downs of human existence, and they blow upon us all. They come in 4 pairs of opposites: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and disrepute. The ordinary, untrained mind is like a leaf at the mercy of these winds. When the wind of praise blows, we soar with pride. When the wind of blame follows, we are dashed to the ground in shame. When we experience a gain of money, status, or a relationship, we are filled with elation. When we suffer a loss, we are plunged into grief. Our inner peace is entirely dependent on external circumstances. We are perpetually unstable, constantly reacting to the changing weather of our lives. The practice of upekkha is the cultivation of an inner stability so profound that we become like a great mountain, not a trembling leaf. The winds still blow, they will always blow, but the mountain is not moved by them. It feels the warmth of the sun and the chill of the snow, but its core remains steady, grounded, and unshaken. This is not because the mountain is suppressing its feelings or pretending not to care. It is because its roots go so deep, its connection to the earth is so profound that the passing weather on its surface cannot disturb its essential nature. Equanimity, then, is this deep rootedness of the heart. This unshakable quality does not arise from sheer willpower. It is the natural fruit of wisdom. Specifically, it is born from the deep experiential understanding of the truths we have already explored. It is rooted in the wisdom of anicca, or impermanence, when we truly see, in our bones, that all things are in a constant state of flux. Our desperate clinging begins to relax. Why become overly attached to praise when we know it is fleeting? Why be utterly destroyed by blame when that too shall pass? Realizing the transient nature of all 8 worldly winds, we stop giving them so much power to define our inner state. Equanimity is also rooted in a wise understanding of karma, the law of cause and effect. We realize that the only things we can truly control are our own intentions and the actions of our own body, speech, and mind. We put forth our best effort. We act with as much kindness and skill as we can. After that, we must let go. The results of our actions are not up to us. They depend on a million other conditions, an intricate web of causes and effects far beyond our command. Equanimity is this radical acceptance of what is within our control and what is not. We do our part, and then we allow the universe to do its part, accepting the outcome with a peaceful heart. And most profoundly, equanimity is rooted in the insight of anatta, or not self. When we are praised, who is it that is being praised? When we are blamed, who is being blamed? When we see that the self is not a solid, continuous entity, but a flowing, impersonal process, the worldly winds lose their target. An insult or a compliment lands not on a fragile ego, but on an open, spacious awareness. The need to defend the self, to polish its reputation, simply falls away. There is no one there to take it so personally. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly embodies this quality. In a small village lived a highly respected Zen master. One day, a young, unmarried woman in the village found she was pregnant. Under pressure from her angry parents, she named the Zen master as the father. The parents, filled with rage and indignation, stormed to the master's home, denounced him publicly, and showered him with insults. The master listened calmly, and when they were finished, simply said, "Is that so?" His reputation in the village was destroyed. When the child was born, the parents brought the baby and thrust it into his arms, saying, "This is your child, you must care for it." The master accepted the baby with gentle care. He found a wet nurse and provided for the child in every way. A year passed. The young mother, her heart filled with guilt, finally confessed to her parents that the real father was a young man from the village. The parents and the villagers were overcome with shame and remorse. They went in a great procession to the master's house to beg for his forgiveness and to take the baby back. The master listened to their apology, calmly handed the baby over to them, and simply said, "Is that so?" The master was not indifferent. He showed great compassion in caring for the child. But his inner peace was not dependent on the praise or blame of the world. He was not elated by their respect, nor was he crushed by their condemnation. His equanimity was the mountain, and their opinions were merely the wind. Upekkha is the great balancer of the heart, the perfection of the other three immeasurables. It is the spacious container that holds them all. It keeps metta, loving kindness, from turning into grasping attachment or sorrow when a loved one is in pain. It keeps karuna, compassion, from collapsing into overwhelming despair or helper burnout. It keeps mudita, sympathetic joy, from becoming giddy excitement or attachment to another's success. Equanimity allows us to love the world fully, with our whole being, without losing our center. It is love and wisdom in perfect balance. Having journeyed through the training of the mind-developing mindfulness, calm, and insight, and the training of the heart-cultivating loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, we have now constructed a complete inner refuge. We have become the unshakable leaf, able to float on the river of life, feeling the current, the sun, and the rain, but remaining whole, peaceful, and free. From this place of profound inner strength and stability, we are now fully equipped to turn our clear eyes and open hearts toward the most fundamental, unavoidable, and often most feared truths of our human condition. We are ready to contemplate old age, sickness, and death, not with fear and aversion, but with the boundless wisdom and peace we have so diligently cultivated. With a mind made stable through practice and a heart made boundless through love, we have constructed an inner vessel capable of navigating the deepest waters of existence. We are no longer a leaf tossed about by the winds of praise and blame. We have become the mountain, grounded in an equanimity that allows us to hold all of life's experiences with a spacious and steady heart. It is from this place of profound strength that we can now turn to face the three great visitors that every human being must eventually entertain, the truths that our modern culture works so tirelessly to deny: old age, sickness, and death. To contemplate them is not to invite despair, it is to embrace a courageous wisdom that has the power to infuse every remaining moment of our lives with profound meaning, gratitude, and joy. Our society is engaged in a frantic war against reality. We are obsessed with the preservation of youth. We spend billions on creams and surgeries to hide the natural artistry of time etched upon our faces. We see grey hair and wrinkles, not as signs of accumulated experience, but as symptoms of a disease to be cured. We marginalize the elderly, hiding them away, afraid that their presence will remind us of our own inevitable future. We treat aging as a failure. Similarly, we view sickness as a personal affront, an injustice. Why me? We demand, as if we were ever promised a life of uninterrupted health. And death, of course, is the ultimate taboo. We speak of it in whispers and euphemisms. We hide it behind the sterile walls of hospitals. We live with the unspoken assumption that we have an infinite amount of time, putting off what truly matters, saving our love and our forgiveness for a someday that may never arrive. This denial does not protect us. It only ensures that when old age, sickness, and death inevitably arrive at our own door, we will greet them with shock, terror, and a profound lack of preparation. The path of wisdom invites us to do the opposite. It encourages us to look at these realities directly, with clarity and courage, just as the young man who would become the Buddha once did. The story is told that Prince Siddhartha was raised in a palace of pure pleasure, shielded by his father from any sight of human suffering. But his divine curiosity could not be contained. He ventured out of the palace walls. On his first trip, he saw an old man bent over a staff, his body frail and wrinkled. Having never seen old age, the prince was deeply shaken. His charioteer explained that this is the fate of all who live long. On his second trip, he saw a man lying by the roadside, his body covered in sores, consumed by fever. He learned of sickness, to which all bodies are vulnerable. On his third trip, he encountered a funeral procession and saw a corpse being carried for cremation. He learned, for the first time, of the stark reality of death. These encounters with suffering, known as the three sights, pierced his heart. They shattered his naive view of the world and ignited in him the burning question, is there a way beyond this suffering? It was his willingness to look directly at the pain of existence, not his denial of it, that set him upon the path to enlightenment. Following in his footsteps, we can learn to use the contemplation of these truths, not as a source of morbidity, but as a powerful tool for awakening. To contemplate old age is to be reminded that our energy, our vitality, and our physical abilities are precious and finite. It motivates us to use this precious human life wisely, not to waste it on trivial conflicts and meaningless pursuits. To contemplate the vulnerability of our bodies to sickness is to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for every single day of health. When we are well, we take it for granted, but a single day without pain is a miracle. Contemplating sickness softens our hearts and opens us to the suffering of those who live with chronic illness. And to contemplate our own death is the most powerful practice of all. It is the great clarifier. The awareness that our time is limited and the moment of our death is unknown is the ultimate antidote to procrastination. It forces us to ask the most important questions. What truly matters to me? Am I living in a way that is aligned with my deepest values? Have I told the people I love that I love them? Have I offered the forgiveness that is needed? The thought of death strips away the non-essential. It cuts through our petty grievances, our foolish pride, and our endless pursuit of trivial distractions. The Roman Stoics would keep a skull on their desk, memento mori. Remember, you will know to be gloomy, but to remember to live fully, virtuously, and with urgency. Let us return to the image of the leaf, our constant companion on this journey. The leaf is born in the spring, vibrant and green. It matures in the summer, strong and full of life. But as autumn comes, it does not cling to its greenness. It does not see its changing colors as a failure or a tragedy. It gracefully surrenders to the process, turning brilliant shades of yellow, orange, and red. There is a profound beauty in this decay, a final, glorious expression of its nature before it lets go and falls. Our body is this leaf. It has its seasons. To fight against the natural autumn of our lives is as futile as a leaf resisting the coming of winter. The practice of wisdom is to learn to inhabit our own aging process with this same grace, to find the unique beauty and wisdom that belongs to each season of life. And what happens when the leaf falls? Does it cease to exist? Number. It lands on the forest floor. It is consumed by microorganisms. It decomposes and becomes the rich, dark soil. It becomes food for the very tree from which it fell. Its life continues in a new form, providing the nourishment for the leaves of next spring. It is a transformation, not an annihilation. This is the insight that the wisdom of anatta and interbeing gives us into death. The self that we fear will be annihilated is an illusion. The elements of our being, the atoms in our body, the energy in our consciousness, the impact of our actions, do not vanish. They simply dissolve back into the great web of life from which they arose, continuing to condition and participate in the universe in new ways. The wave returns to the ocean, the leaf returns to the forest. When we understand this continuity, our terror of personal obliteration begins to soften, replaced by a sense of trust in the great, mysterious cycles of existence. This vision of the leaf becoming the soil, of the wave being the ocean, of all forms dissolving and re-emerging, points to an even deeper truth. It suggests that nothing has a solid, fixed, independent essence. The nature of the leaf is also the nature of the soil. The nature of the wave is also the nature of the water. Everything is fluid, interdependent, and ultimately empty of a separate, enduring identity. To truly be free from the deepest roots of fear, we must now investigate this very emptiness. What is the ultimate nature of this reality that is in constant transformation? We are ready to approach the most subtle, and perhaps the most liberating, teaching of all, the wisdom of shunyata, or emptiness. Having followed the leaf on its journey, watching it fall from the branch and return to the earth, we have glimpsed the great secret of transformation. Having explored the illusion of the separate self, we have seen that the wave is, in truth, the ocean. This points us toward the most profound, subtle, and liberating teaching in the Buddhist tradition, the very heart of wisdom. It is the teaching on shunyata, or emptiness. To many, the word emptiness sounds cold, nihilistic, and frightening. It conjures images of a black void, of nothingness, of a complete negation of life. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. In the context of this wisdom, emptiness is not nothingness. It is, in fact, the most positive, dynamic, and freeing realization possible. It does not mean that things do not exist. It means they do not exist in the way we think they do. Shunyata means empty of a separate, independent, and permanent essence. It means that no thing, no person, no phenomenon in the entire universe exists on its own, from its own side. Everything arises in dependence upon conditions. This is the deepest implication of the law of interbeing we have already explored. A flower is empty of being a separate flower because it is full of the entire cosmos, the sun, the soil, the rain, the bee. It has no independent existence apart from these conditions. Because it is empty of a separate self, it is able to be full of everything else. This is the great paradox. Let us make this practical. Look at a simple table. We give it the label table. We think of it as a solid, real object. But let us investigate it. Where is the tableness of the table? Is it in the wood? No, the wood was once a tree. Is it in the legs? A single leg is not a table. Is it in the flat surface? Is it in the nails? Is it in the design that existed in the carpenter's mind? We can break the table down into all of its constituent parts and all of the conditions that brought it into being. The tree, the sun, the rain, the logger, the carpenter, the tools, the idea. We can find all the things that the table is made of, but we cannot find a single, intrinsic, independent essence of table that exists apart from these parts and conditions. Table is a convenient, conventional name we apply to a temporary arrangement of causes and conditions. When those conditions change, if we burn the table or take it apart, the table is gone. The table was always empty of being a permanent, self-sufficient table. Now, we must apply this same fearless analysis to ourselves. We have already seen through the lens of anatta that we are a collection of 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Now, with the lens of shunyata, we see that each of these aggregates is also empty of a separate existence. Our body, form, is empty because it is made of non-body elements like food, air, and water. Our feelings, perceptions, and thoughts are empty because they can only arise in dependence on contact with the outside world. Our consciousness is empty because it can only arise when a sense organ and a sense object come together. We are, like the table, a temporary conditional gathering of universal energies. We are empty of being a separate, independent me. This leads us to the most famous and concise teaching on this topic. A line from the Heart Sutra, which states, "Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form." At first, this sounds like baffling mystical poetry, but with our understanding of the wave and the ocean, we can unlock its meaning. Form is emptiness. Think of a wave. The wave has a distinct form. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a shape, a height, a color. But if we look for the essential waveness of the wave, what do we find? We only find water. The form of the wave is completely empty of a separate, independent self. Its entire reality is dependent on the water, the wind, the seafloor, and 1,000 other conditions. So, the form we see is, in its ultimate nature, empty of self-existence. Emptiness is form. This is the other, crucial half of the wisdom. This emptiness is not a blank nothingness that exists somewhere apart from the world. The emptiness, the water's true nature, is what allows the form of the wave to appear. The water expresses itself as the wave. Emptiness is the dynamic potentiality, the ungraspable, unborn, and undying ground of being, from which all forms arise and to which they all return. Emptiness is not the absence of life. It is the very womb of life. It is the silent, empty page that allows a beautiful story to be written. It is the empty space in a room that makes it a room, allowing us to live within it. So why is this realization considered the pinnacle of wisdom and the gateway to complete liberation? Because it is the ultimate solvent of all clinging. When you truly understand that all things, including yourself, are empty of a fixed, solid essence, the mind's habit of grasping and rejecting finally relaxes. Why would you desperately cling to a pleasant feeling when you see it is as ephemeral and empty of substance as a dream? Why would you be consumed by hatred for a person when you see that the person you hate is a fluid, ever-changing process, empty of a solid target? Understanding emptiness frees us from the tyranny of concepts. We live in a world of rigid labels: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure, me, you. We cling to these labels as if they were ultimate realities, and this clinging causes immense suffering. The wisdom of Shunyata reveals that these are all just conventional designations, useful for navigating the world, but empty of ultimate truth. The person you label enemy is empty of being an intrinsic enemy. They have the potential to become a friend. The situation you label a disaster is empty of being an intrinsic disaster. It contains the seeds of unforeseen opportunity and growth. Because everything is empty of a fixed nature, everything is full of infinite possibility. Change is not just possible, it is the fundamental nature of reality. This is the great hope and freedom that this wisdom offers. It allows us to hold our lives with a much lighter touch. We can still play our roles in the world as a parent, a professional, a citizen, but we don't over-identify with them. We can experience success without being inflated by it, and failure without being crushed by it, because we know that both are empty, dreamlike phenomena. We can love with a greater and more fearless heart, because we are no longer terrified of losing the objects of our love, knowing that nothing can truly be lost in a universe that is one, seamless, interconnected whole. We have now climbed to the highest peak of the mountain of wisdom. We have looked out upon the vast, luminous, and breathtaking landscape of reality as revealed by Shunyata. We have seen that all things are empty of separation and full of the entire universe. We have seen that this emptiness is not a void, but a dynamic dance of infinite potential. The view is magnificent, but we cannot live on a mountaintop. The journey of wisdom is not complete until we learn how to bring this expansive view back down into the valley of our everyday lives. How do we embody this understanding while washing the dishes, sitting in traffic, or dealing with a difficult colleague? How do we translate the ultimate truth of emptiness into the practical reality of our moment-to-moment existence? We must now learn the art of integrating this profound vision into our daily lives, making the path itself our home. We have climbed the great mountain of wisdom, and from its peak, we have glimpsed the breathtaking landscape of reality. We have seen the truth of impermanence, the illusion of the separate self, and the profound, liberating emptiness that is the very ground of being. The view is life-altering, but wisdom that remains on a mountaintop is sterile. Its true purpose is not to be a beautiful theory, but to transform the way we live in the valley. The final, and perhaps most important, Part of our journey is to learn how to carry this expansive vision back down into the marketplace, the office, the kitchen, and the heart of our relationships. It is the art of integrating our deepest understanding into our most ordinary moments. There is a common misconception that spiritual practice is something separate from real life. We think of meditation as an activity confined to a cushion, a quiet room, a special time of day. We see it as a temporary escape from the stresses of the world. But this is only the very first stage. The cushion is the training ground. It is the gym where we build the muscles of mindfulness and compassion. Our daily life, with all its challenges, frustrations and joys, is the arena where the game is actually played. The goal is not to create a peaceful life by escaping the world, but to bring a peaceful mind to the world exactly as it is. Your office becomes your monastery. The traffic jam becomes your meditation hall. Your family becomes your most profound spiritual teacher. The key to this integration is a radical shift in perspective. It is the art of seeing every moment, especially the ones we typically label as bad or wasted, as a fresh opportunity for practice. Think of the moments in your day you consider dead time waiting in line at the post office, being stuck in traffic, waiting for a slow computer to load. Our habitual reaction is frustration, impatience, and a desperate reach for the distraction of our phone. This is the mind of aversion and mindlessness. The integrated practice sees this as a gift. Here is a moment, completely unplanned, with nothing to do. It is a perfect, unasked-for opportunity to come home to the breath. You can feel the irritation arise, and instead of becoming it, you can observe it with mindfulness. You can feel the tension in your shoulders and consciously release it on the out-breath. You can practice anapanasati for 1 minute, and that wasted time becomes a moment of profound sanity and peace. The traffic jam has become a retreat. Consider the mundane chores of your household. Washing the dishes, folding laundry, sweeping the floor. We usually perform these tasks on autopilot, our minds lost in a fog of worry about the past or planning for the future. But each of these activities is a golden opportunity for action meditation. When you wash the dishes, you can decide to just wash the dishes. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. See the glistening soap bubbles. Hear the sound of the plates touching. Be fully present with the simple, tactile reality of the experience. The chore is no longer a burden to be rushed through. It becomes a practice of Zen, a moment of embodied presence. Even our most difficult interactions can become our greatest practice. When you anticipate a difficult conversation with a partner, a colleague, or a family member, instead of armoring yourself for battle, you can set an intention to use it as a laboratory for the Eightfold Path. You can practice right intention, aiming for connection and understanding rather than proving you are right. You can practice right speech, choosing your words with care, abstaining from blame and harshness. Most powerfully, you can practice mindful listening, giving the other person your full attention, listening not just to their words, but to the suffering and the unmet needs that lie beneath them. This is the practice of karuna, compassion in action. The conflict is no longer a threat to your ego, but an opportunity to deepen your wisdom and your capacity for love. Remembering to be mindful throughout a busy day is, of course, very difficult. Our habits of distraction are strong. A simple and powerful technique is to create islands of mindfulness in the ocean of your day. Choose a few recurring events to be your anchor, your signal to come home. Perhaps it is every time you walk through a doorway, or every time you take a sip of water, or every time your phone rings. Let that be your cue to stop for just a moment and take 3 conscious breaths. On the first breath, simply be aware that you are here, in your body. On the second breath, feel the tension in your body begin to soften. On the third breath, offer a gentle mental smile to yourself. This entire practice takes less than 15 seconds, but if you sprinkle these tiny islands of presence throughout your day, you will find you are never lost at sea for too long. You constantly re-establish your connection to the present moment, weaving a thread of awareness through the fabric of your life. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures the spirit of this integration. A young, eager student approaches his Zen master and asks, "Master, what did you do before you were enlightened?" The master thinks for a moment and replies, "Before I was enlightened, I chopped wood and I carried water." The student, hungry for the secrets of an awakened life, then asks, And Master, what do you do now, after you are enlightened? The Master smiles a gentle smile and replies, after I am enlightened, I chop wood and I carry water. The student is bewildered. Then what is the difference? He asks. Ah, says the Master, the difference is everything. Before, when I chopped wood, I was thinking about carrying the water. When I was carrying the water, I was thinking about what I would eat for dinner. My mind was never where my body was. Now, when I chop wood, I just chop wood. My entire being is in the swing of the axe, the scent of the pine, the crisp split of the log. When I carry water, I just carry water. I feel the weight of the buckets, the shifting balance in my shoulders, the coolness of the water against my skin. The most ordinary action, when done with complete presence, becomes a sacred act. My whole life has become my meditation. This is the ultimate fruit of the path. It is not an escape from our life, but a total immersion in it. It is the realization that the sacred is not somewhere else. It is hidden in plain sight, in the very fabric of our ordinary experience. Wisdom is not a concept to be understood, but a presence to be embodied. As we continue to integrate these practices, the distinction between our formal meditation and our daily life begins to dissolve. They become one seamless flow. We are no longer just practicing the path, we are becoming the path. We are becoming the leaf, fully present, surrendered, and at peace as it drifts on the great river of life. Having traveled with the leaf as our guide, we have followed it on its long and winding journey. We saw it let go of the branch, an act of renunciation. We saw it surrender to the river's current, an act of acceptance. We watched it navigate the eddies and rapids, an act of wisdom. We saw how it was inseparable from the sun, the cloud, and the water, an act of realizing into being. And now, the river of its journey approaches its final destination. The water slows, it widens, and a new scent comes upon the air, the clean, vast, salt scent of the open sea. The journey of the river is about to end, because it is about to merge with its source and its fulfillment, the great ocean. This is the final stage of our path, the culmination of all our practice. It is the realization of oneness and the taste of true liberation. As the river water begins to mingle with the ocean water, the distinction between them becomes blurred. Which drop is from the river? Which is from the sea? The question itself becomes meaningless. The leaf, which has been carried so long, now floats in this great expanse. It has been saturated by the water, and its form, which once seemed so solid and distinct, begins to soften, to dissolve, to release its form back into the elements from which it was made. The journey of the leaf is over, not because it has been destroyed, but because its very reason for a separate journey, in the illusion of its separate neshes, come to an end. It does not cease to be. It ceases to be a separate thing. It becomes one with the water, one with the ocean, one with the all. This is a crucial understanding in the spiritual life. The path we have been exploring is not one of self-improvement. It is not about taking a bad or unhappy self and making it into a good, enlightened, or Buddhist self. To do so would simply be to trade one illusion of identity for another, to build a more beautiful cage. The path is one of self-realization, and what we realize is that the self we have been trying to improve, to protect, and to liberate is not our true nature. The entire journey has been a process of unlearning the false belief that we were ever separate in the first place. The leaf does not become the ocean. It realizes that it was always made of the same stardust, carbon, and water as the ocean, that it was always a part of the great, indivisible web of life. It was only its temporary form and its limited view that made it think it was separate. In the same way, we do not become enlightened. We simply remove the clouds of greed, aversion, and delusion that have been obscuring the clear, bright, enlightened sky of our own true nature, which has been there all along. This state of ultimate freedom, of the river meeting the ocean, is called nirvana or nibbana in Pali. We often imagine nirvana as a kind of heavenly paradise, a beautiful place we go to after a life of hard practice. But this is a misconception. The literal meaning of nibbana is to extinguish or to blow out, like blowing out a candle flame. What is it that is extinguished? It is the three fires that we have seen are the cause of all our suffering. It is the fire of lobha, or greedy craving. It is the fire of dosa, or angry aversion. And it is the fire of moha, the deluding ignorance, that fuels the other two. When these three fires are completely blown out, what remains? What remains is not a void, but a state of profound peace, luminous clarity, and unshakable freedom. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is the natural state of the mind when it is finally unburdened. It is the stillness of the deep ocean after the storm has passed. It is the silence that is revealed when the noise has stopped. There is a beautiful image used in Zen to describe this. Imagine a single, perfect dewdrop resting on a lotus leaf at dawn. For a few precious hours, it has a separate existence. It is a dewdrop. It is beautiful. It reflects the entire universe in its tiny, spherical body, the pink and orange clouds, the rising sun, the vast blue sky. It contains everything, yet it believes itself to be just a small, fragile drop. It might even fear the warmth of the sun, knowing that the rising heat threatens its very existence. As the sun climbs higher, the lotus leaf tilts. The dewdrop begins to slide. It reaches the very edge of the leaf, and for one shimmering moment, it hangs between its separate world and the vast, calm surface of the lake below. And then, it lets go. It slips from the leaf and merges seamlessly with the water. In that moment, is the dewdrop annihilated? Has it died? From the perspective of its separate identity, yes. But from the perspective of ultimate reality, no. It has not been destroyed. It has been liberated. It has returned to its true home, the great body of water from which it arose and of which it was always a part. The illusion of its separateness has ended, and in that ending is its final peace. It has become the lake. It has become the ocean. It has become everything. This state of liberation may seem like a distant, lofty goal, reserved only for great saints and masters who have practiced for lifetimes. But this, too, a subtle illusion. The great promise of this path is that liberation is not just a final destination. It can be tasted in small, precious moments, right here and now. Every single time you are mindful of an angry thought and choose not to follow it, you taste a small drop of nirvana. You are free, in that moment, from the fire of dosa. Every time you notice a strong craving arise, and you allow it to pass without grasping for it, you taste a small drop of nirvana. You are free, in that moment, from the fire of lobha. Every time you see through a limiting story about yourself or others, every time you let go of a rigid opinion, you taste a small drop of nirvana. You are free, in that moment, from the fire of moha. Liberation is not a single, grand event in the future. It is a moment-by-moment practice of freedom. It is the continuous process of letting go, of opening up, of seeing clearly. Each moment of true presence is a moment of freedom. Each act of selfless kindness is a moment of freedom. Each breath taken with full awareness is a moment of freedom. The entire ocean is contained in a single drop, and the entirety of nirvana is contained in a single moment of release. And so, the journey of our leaf comes to its peaceful end, finding its true nature in its union with the whole. We have followed its path from the struggle against the current to the wisdom of flowing with it, from the pain of separation to the joy of connection, and finally, to the serene peace of dissolution, into the boundless ocean of being. This journey is not just the story of a leaf. It is the story of our own potential. It is the map of our own journey home. We have traveled a long way together, following the simple, silent wisdom of a drifting leaf. Our journey began in the turbulent waters of our own minds, feeling like a swimmer fighting a relentless current, exhausted by a struggle we could not name and could not win. We felt the ache of resistance, the fear of being swept away, the deep fatigue that comes from a life spent at war with the way things are. From that place of struggle, we learned to look at the world differently. We saw the leaf, and we began to understand the grace of surrender, the strength in yielding. We followed the river of impermanence, seeing how all things arise and pass away. We examined the heavy burdens of attachment we carry, the clenched fist that causes so much of our own pain. We looked into the murky water and identified the poisons of greed, aversion, and delusion that cloud our vision. We were given a map, the Four Noble Truths, that diagnosed our condition and showed us the path to healing. We learned to train the mind with the light of mindfulness and the stillness of calm, and to open the heart with the boundless warmth of loving kindness. compassion, sympathetic joy, and unshakable equanimity. Finally, we saw the illusion of our own separateness dissolve, realizing that we are not the lonely leaf, but the entire river, flowing inevitably and peacefully toward the great ocean of being. And so we arrive here, at the end of this journey of words, but at the true beginning of our own practice. If there is one essential truth to carry with you from our time together, let it be this: peace is not the absence of storms in your life. It is the quiet stillness of your mind in the midst of them. It is not something you must go out and find, or build, or achieve. It is your most natural state. It is the peace that is already here, waiting for you, underneath the noise of your own resistance. You do not need to change the world to be at peace. You only need to change your relationship to it. You only need to stop fighting. This power is already within you. You do not need a special mantra, a remote monastery, or a perfected life. The tools you need are the ones you have possessed since the moment you were born. Your own breath, your own awareness, and your own innate capacity for kindness. The entire path is nothing more than learning how to use these simple gifts with wisdom. The journey does not end when this video fades to black. It begins in the very next moment. It begins the next time you feel the familiar grip of anxiety, the next time you are caught in traffic, the next time you feel the sting of a harsh word. In that moment, you have a choice. You can follow the old, habitual path of struggle, or you can try something new. You can remember the leaf. Just for a moment, you can stop. You can close your eyes. You can take a single, conscious breath, feeling it enter your body and feeling it leave. And in the quiet space of that one breath, you can imagine yourself as the leaf, resting on the water, held safely by the great river, and finally, at peace. For this peace you seek is not somewhere else. It is not in the future. It is always and already right here.